as we go down to the dance hall. Check out Ho'onua jamming. Yes, these brothers know how. Can you believe what a merry weekend we've had, my friend? What would you give up for it to be Friday again? Island style cruising. Island style cruising. Island style cruising. Island style cruising.
We are cruising island style.
Island style cruising. Island style cruising. Island style cruising. Island style cruising. Island style cruising.
We've been together since way back when, and sometimes I never want to see you again. But I want to know, after all these years, that you're still the one I want whispering in my ears. You're still the one like to talk to in bed. You're still the one that turns my head. We're still having fun, and you're still the one. Well, I look at your face every day, and I never seen it till I went away. When winter came, I just wanted to go back to the desert. How I love for the snow. You're still the one that makes me laugh. Still the one that's my better half. We're still having fun, and you're still the one. You're still the one that makes me strong. You're still the one I wanna take along. We're still having fun, and you're still the one. You're still the one that I love to touch. You're still the one, and I can't get enough. And we're still having fun, and you're still the one. You are still the one who can scratch my itch. You're still the one, and I wouldn't switch. We're still having fun, and you're still the one. You're still the one that makes me shout. Still the one I wanna dream about. We're still having fun, and you're still the one. We're still having fun, and you're still the one.
As I'm driving in my car with nowhere to go, I start thinking of you, girl. When will I see you again? Anticipating time with you. So me feel so.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ken Fadner, Chairman of Media Post. Thank you. Thank you for that. Where's my slide that says Ken Fadner, Chairman of Media Post? Oh, jeez. They didn't know I was going to be here. Okay. Well, I am here. So we've been doing this Search Insider Summit for, just looked it up, 14 years, 28 different Search Insider Summits. And that's, a lot of years. Most of you were still in diapers, I think, when we started doing it. Why isn't that getting a laugh? Okay, so... Oh, John, okay. In any event, and we've been coming to this resort, we've come here 10 of the last 12 years. I think that you could check me on that. So we come here because I happen to have a place here. That's why we started coming here. It's kind of hard to get to. Some of you people, who's from the West Coast? Okay, how hard was it? Yeah, I know. It's a direct flight from New York City, but sorry about that. I'm glad you're with us. It's going to be a great 3 days. Don't forget to take part in the afternoon activities. We've got tarpon fishing. We've got golf on a nice little golf course up here. We've got rides to remote islands where you pick up pristine shells, which they're pristine because they roll in from the Gulf of Mexico. The waves roll them in from the bottom of the Gulf. Anyhow, it's a great place. We love it. I hope you love it as well. And be sure to take part in all the activities that are available to you and all the evening events, because that's how you get to know your fellow attendees, and that's the great thing about these summits. Kicking off this morning, and sponsoring our breakfast is Adobe, who have done many things with us over the years. We really appreciate their support. You're going to hear from Pete Kluge. I said it that way because he's of a German extraction, and I happen to know. But he says in the U.S. he goes as Pete Klug. He's Group Manager, Product Marketing for Adobe. He's going to take paid search performance to the next level with AI and hybrid optimization. Pete?
Thank you, sir. Good morning. All right, I love these Media Post events. I mean, what a great location. I come here for work, to learn, meet customers, but I feel like I'm on vacation. I mean, isn't this place great? So speaking of vacations, my family and I went to Legoland in Carlsbad 3 weeks ago. And we paid our entrance tickets, and then they started offering all these upgrade options. And one of those options was the Fast Pass. You guys know what I'm talking about? So all the amusement parks have them now, Disneyland, they all do these days. And I was completely confused by these options at Legoland. They have 3 options. The first is reduce your wait time by 90% for $100 per person. So I have a family of 4. I thought, you crazy? You want an extra $400 to get on the rides, right? Second option was reduce your wait time by 50% for $55 a person. So it's still, another couple $100. And the third option was reduce your wait time by 25% for $35 a person. And, I really didn't get it the first day we were there. I thought, okay, so is there separate lines you go in? Like, how does this work? And I was kind of running the numbers, and I was really kind of a state of analysis paralysis. I didn't know which option I should go with. I want my family to have a good time. We had gone on one roller coaster. We waited an hour to get on it. And after 45 minutes, my daughter was bored and wanted to leave and do something else. So on day 2, we did end up buying the cheap option, which ended up being fine. You get like a pager, and it just tells you what time to go to the line. So that worked out good. So while I was preparing my presentation, I was thinking about this experience. And how many options search advertisers have today to optimize their paid search? And it can be confusing, way more confusing than Legoland Fast Passes. So you have the bid management optimization vendors like Adobe that optimize your search across search engines. And then you also have now the search engines that they've made major updates to their performance algorithms that say they can drive better performance by going directly to them. So you have Google doing smart bidding, the target CPA, target ROAS. So you have a lot of options, and it can be challenging to determine the right one and make the right decision. Where do I run my campaigns to drive the best possible performance? Do I test going direct with the search engines versus my bid management platform? Do I run campaigns in both? It's time consuming, it's cumbersome. So Adobe has addressed this through something called hybrid optimization that allows advertisers to manage their search across bidding technologies, so across search engines, across bidding tech, strategies, and tactics, all within the same platform. So I'll talk a little bit more about that today. So what I'd like to do is do a quick overview of Adobe Advertising Cloud Search, as well as share our latest innovation called hybrid optimization. So as everybody knows here, search advertising has gotten complex. And it's too much data for humans to sift through and make the best possible decisions on bid amounts and budget allocation. So what you really need is artificial intelligence to help make these decisions. All this data really all boils together, and you could have billions of data points and decisions. And artificial intelligence and machine learning can sort through that data, sift through it, make the best possible decisions on bid amounts and budget allocation. When it comes to conversion data, you have the opposite problem. Coming at revenue, you may have 1 or 2 or 3% conversion rate. So for all those other searchers, 97, 98%, we don't have any conversion or revenue data to optimize against. So you have this data sparsity challenge, and that can be solved through unique data access. And then unique data access can help where you have data sparsity around conversion and revenue data. So these are the areas that Adobe Advertising Cloud Search are focused on. We're focused on artificial intelligence powered optimization and unique data and audience access to optimize and personalize paid search. Adobe Sensei is Adobe's common framework for machine learning and artificial intelligence. Adobe Sensei powers our search product. Adobe Sensei powers our forecast models and our spend recommendations and our performance optimizations within the platform. The Sensei-driven forecast models are used to run simulations. An advertiser can see predicted performance outcomes like clicks, costs, and revenue before they apply actual budget. You can run spend recommendations to get ideas of how you should allocate your budget across portfolios. And we hold ourselves accountable to the accuracy of these models. So typically our accuracy is 90 to 95%, and we're completely transparent. You can run a model accuracy report and compare actual performance or the forecast versus actual performance. So you have transparency in how those forecast models are running, and you can be confident that the forecasts are doing what they should be doing, the forecast models. In addition to that, a big focus for us is unique data and audience access within the platform, and with a big focus on first-party data. Those are some of your most valuable audiences. Those are those users that have shown high intent by their actions. They've been to your website. They've purchased your products. They've shown high intent and high interest in your brand. So an example of that is our integration with our Adobe Analytics, Site Analytics solution. And this helps solve that data sparsity challenge I was talking about with conversion and revenue data. Even when you don't have conversion data, we can use things like engagement metrics, time on site, page views, return visits. We can use that data to fill in the gaps to optimize your search. And by doing that, we see on average a lift of 13 to 18% of customers that have both AdCloud Search and Adobe Analytics. For audiences, AdCloud Search is integrated with Experience Cloud Audiences from Adobe Analytics. You can take a segment your search. And so you can use those segments, activate them automatically for RLSAs without having to go into Google and manually set up those RLSAs, for example. In addition, you can reach that same common audience from those solutions, Analytics, Audience Manager, or Campaign, across channels through the Ad Cloud. So now you can reach that same audience in search, but also in display, video, and even use it for TV planning. So you can deliver a consistent, relevant experience. With hybrid optimization, an advertiser can optimize across traditional keyword CPC bids. So typically, where these bid management platforms like AdCloud Search are optimizing, looking at granular data, and coming up with the right CPC bid amount to maximize for your performance and for your goal. Now, within the same platform, we can also support Google Target CPA and ROAS campaigns and bidding tactics, or a combination of the two within the same portfolio. So an advertiser just sets their budget and their budget and their objective, and the platform will optimize across all those bidding technologies within one platform. So here's an example of how it could look if you're running across a portfolio across both CPC bids and Google Smart Bidding, CPA and Target ROAS campaigns. You could have a portfolio within Advertising Cloud that has campaigns that are traditional CPC bids. You can also have Google Smart Bidding, Target CPA and ROAS campaign. Maximize for your performance objective, and it'll optimize the CPA and ROAS values to most efficiently meet your goals. So we're really excited about this. This is kind of the latest innovation of our search product that we've just rolled out now. It helps drive superior performance for advertisers by managing all these and optimizing for all of them across these bidding tactics in the same platform. One platform, and you get performance insights. You can see a comparison how they perform against each other. Make sure you're driving the best possible performance. So that's all I had for today, you guys. So thank you very much for your time. I look forward to meeting you guys. I'll be here this week, of course. If you want to talk, this is a high-level overview. If you want to talk a little bit more detail about this stuff, I'm happy to do it. Enjoy the summit. Thank you very much.
All right, Pete. Thanks so much. And you have a colleague here as well. Is that right, or is she not here yet?
I think I don't know. Angela, you here? I was looking for her, and I heard her flight was delayed last night, so I don't know, maybe she slept in, got in late.
No problem.
I don't know.
So Pete and Angela will be here. Any questions for Pete while we have him here? If not, you've got a few days here, obviously, to follow up. Angela will be here as well, and
Yes.
and thanks for kicking things off for us.
Yeah.
So, all right,
Thanks,
big
Don.
hand for
Okay.
Pete, sir. Danke Shane. Did he get it right, by the way, Kluge?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good job. Yes. And he's right about that. You just go with Klug in business because nobody can say the part. You should try it. Can you say Kluge?
Kluge,
Kluge. Pretty good. Pretty good.
It's like Canadian.
Kluge.
Okay, thanks, Pete. That's great. All right, so we're kicked off officially here. We're going to take, what are we going to take, about 5 minutes or so to do coffee? What do you want to do? 5 to 7. Okay, we'll take 5 to 7 minutes, question mark, 5 to 7 minutes just to refresh your coffees and whatnot and clean the room a little bit, and then we'll get going with the rest of the program. Thank you.
Well, you could have been anything that you wanted to. I can take the way you do the things you do. Alright, the way you do the things you do. The way you do the things you do. Alright, the way you do the things you do. The way you do the things you do. Alright, the way you do the things you do. The way you do the things you do. Alright, the way you do the things you do. I like the sand spreading out to the sea. I like the tropical moon and the lazy palm trees. I like to listen to my heart. There's no place I'd rather be. Man, this is where I wanna be. Back to the kind all over Moped or Molokai, I will return. Take me back, Moped or Molokai, I will return. I like the gecko singing in the night. I like to do the dance they do to the Molokai slide when the sun come up shining. Always more better. Woman, I don't understand the words, but in time I think I could if I just had the time. Oh, if I just had the time. Pig and all the coconuts are free. And what you see is what you get. It's just a little grass shack. I know you're gonna like it, and I hope you come back. I like the fishes swimming around in the sea. I like to hop them on the grill and I cook them up for me with a big pan of butter. Man, it can't get better than this. No, no, no. I like the chickens. You hop them on the grill, man, it hurts to eat some raw fish and eat up all the spills. Oh well, oh yeah, it's just a luau down by the sea. To the kind all over Moped or Molokai, I will return. All over Moped, I will return. Whoa, yeah, all over Moped, Molokai, I will return.
Blue skies, it's a sunshiny day. Good and good weather makes you feel no pain in Hawaii. Here in Hawaii, yeah. Blue skies, it's a sunshiny day. Good and good weather makes you feel no pain in Hawaii. Here in Hawaii, yeah. Walls of white floating above, carrying angels looking down on us. They bring the raindrops now and again, and from the sun you get protection. Blue skies, it's the sunshiny day. Good and good weather makes you feel no pain in Hawaii. Here in Hawaii, yeah. Blue skies, it's a sunshiny day. Good and good weather makes you feel no pain in Hawaii. Here in Hawaii, yeah. snorkel and spear. I catch the dinner, you keep the skies clear. Yeah, blue skies, it's a sunshiny day. Good and good weather makes you feel no pain in Hawaii. Here in Hawaii, yeah. No pain in Hawaii. Here in Hawaii, yeah. Go up the mountain and try to get lost. Enjoy Mother Nature and her elegant touch. Jump off the cliff into the icy cold pond. Reach out and touch the waterfall on the way down. Blue skies, it's a sunshiny day. Good and good weather makes you feel no pain in Hawaii. Here in Hawaii, yeah. Blue skies, it's a sunshiny day. Good and good weather makes you feel no pain in Hawaii. Here in Hawaii, yeah. Blue skies, it's a sunshiny day. Good and good weather makes you feel no pain in Hawaii. Here in Hawaii, yeah. Blue skies, it's a sunshiny day. Good and good weather makes you feel no pain in Hawaii. Here in Hawaii,
He ho'ohena ke ke aku ke kai moana nui la nui ke aloha e hi'i pohine me ke ala o kalipoa He ho'ohena ke aku ke kai moana nui la nui ke aloha e hi'i pohine me ke ala o kalipoa He lipoa e pai ke one hinu la vela I pala ke ia
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to what we believe is the 27th edition of Summit, with a little bit of change, which I'm going to explain in a second. My name is Steve Smith. I'm the editorial director of events here at MediaPost. I'm your programmer. I'll be your MC over the next few days. You'll be tired of me by the end. We started this event, as Ken mentioned, 14 years ago, and at the time, Search was the only serious digital game and automated attempts at online advertising. It also was its accountability, its measurability, really attracted media budgets that still were incredibly shy about coming online and all the other formats. If you go back and you look at the share of money that was going to Search at the time, it overwhelmed everything by a wide margin. And among all of our events, the Search Insider Summit was known to be where the big dogs of digital came. In fact, there was a bit of a swagger. This event had a bit of a reputation for having the big dogs who had the big budget and who didn't suffer fools gladly. In fact, and some of that old swagger to some degree has waned a little bit, to be honest. We've seen other channels come in, being able to make good on some of the claims that Search once had. As well as social and mobile, take on some of Search's exclusive claims to things like accountability, to automation, to ease of use, to measurability. And in some ways, Search has become a little old hat, even if it has become still indispensable to almost every marketing plan. And yet the numbers still show how dominant search is as a part of the media mix. If we look at eMarketer's estimates for this year, for this coming year, they will say that we're now at the point where digital has finally overtaken traditional media forms. Spend last year was estimated at about $111 billion for digital. And of that, almost half was still in search. And it was being driven. We're still seeing double-digit growth in search after all of these years. A lot of it now being driven by local coming online and also mobile and the importance of location in search mechanisms. So the most basic intent signal is still robust. It's still at the center of things. But what has changed is all of these other data channels, all of these other data-driven channels that have gained similar sophistication. So now we see, after years of promise, that programmatic display and video really is starting to show the kind of precision and tracking as search. It always said it would get there, and in some measure it has. And we really are starting to see a cluster of performance marketing channels. They're starting to work with search in order to drive performance conversions, to close the loop on the sale and conversion. And that's what we're here to talk about today. And of course we have social media, which is almost infamous now in its targetability. So in many ways, other channels were getting very good at gleaning intent in a lot of different ways. They were really starting to rob some of the shine from search. And after years as its own fiefdom, search really started integrating more, and we really started seeing search integrating both data on the front end, but also on the back end. A lot of its insights could help drive a lot of these other channels. And so the Search Insider Summit has evolved this time into the Search and Performance Insider Summit. And we're trying here to capture some of that change, the ways in which search, both as a medium, is being integrated with a larger marketing plan, no longer siloed at all, but also on the back end, a lot of the data that comes from search is driving a lot of these other media and still driving us towards a more performance-oriented approach. So today, and in fact, by the way, there's a little bit of news this morning that kind of followed, we didn't know this was going to happen until late last night. Microsoft just announced a rebranding of Bing. It is now going to be known as Microsoft Advertising. And in fact, in their rationale for that, this was the very rationale that they used, that they wanted to come to market being seen as more than search, but search integrated with all of the other ad products and all of the other marketing channels that they offered. So what we're going to be doing over the next few days is try to look at this integration. Today we're going to look at one brand's approach to holistic search, what it calls holistic search, how it defines it, and how it's looking at the future of search integrated into the larger mix. But we're also going to be looking at that media mix, the ways in which search is being blended in with performance advertising, and we're also going to look and look a little bit about the ways in which they're doing it. Tomorrow we're going to engage some of those news channels, especially the retail channel and Amazon, and the ways in which new kinds of inventory are coming online and new kinds of search are coming online and the way they're being used. But we're also an additional presentation that just came on at the last minute on attribution. And then on the third day, we're going to look at several cases. We're going to hear from Homes.com, from TE Connectivity, and Strategic Education, and look in greater detail at the ways in which they're leveraging some of these channels. So a little word about the summit. How many of you are first-timers to an Insider Summit? We have a fair number of returnees. But those of you who are new, welcome. A few ground rules about how these summits work. Everything on stage is on the record, live streamed over MediaPost.com. So if you have colleagues back at the home office, ping them. They can come and tune in. So it's on the record. We blog it. We report on it. We'll have video highlights that we'll be sending out afterwards. But then at noon, everything comes off stage and goes off the record. And that's where we have our roundtable discussions. I can't emphasize enough how much the roundtables are really the core of this summit. As much as we take pride in the kind of formal content we put on stage, that's really, I regard, you take this content and turn it into conversations, that it really comes to life at these summits. My advice to everyone is at noon, don't run out, get on your cell phone, try to do a quick phone appointment. It really is worthwhile to spend the next 45 minutes in these roundtables. You'll get a lot out of it, and it will also seed the rest of the day. That's a format that we've been doing here for 14 years, and believe me, it works. So welcome to all of you. And we're going to start out with this look at this idea of holistic search, probably as good an opening as we can have for an event that is broadening its idea of search, and what that means. So we're going to explore with Verizon's approach to how they're planning for a future of persistent change in search, but search that a way of coming at search that may be more private, more decentralized, and ultimately silent. To tell us about this is Rob Pavachik, who is the SEO lead at Verizon. Before coming to Verizon, he was at Publicis, where he ran the search and data science team for a great number of Fortune 500 brands. Now he leads what he calls holistic search across all of Verizon. We're going to bring Rob up in a minute, but we're going to start with some visuals to help explain some of this. So let's start it up.
What's the largest city in Bulgaria, and what is the population?
Arnav Kapoor is a student. He's 23 years old from India. It's really exciting what he's working on.
Sophia, 1.21 million.
That is correct.
This is a device that you put on, and it intercepts the electrical signals that your brain is sending to your vocal cords and sends that to a computer. And he gets the answer right in his ear through vibrations.
You could be an expert in any subject. Mm-hmm. You have the entire internet in your head.
That's the idea.
What else should we do besides that? So Scott gets done interviewing Arnav, and we decided to have a little fun. So are you telling me that you can order food without lifting a finger or saying anything?
Let's do it, yeah. We want to order it.
Surprise me. And he says, it's asking, what kind of toppings do you want?
Want cheese pizza?
Pepperoni?
Let's do some pepperoni pizza. Can it do pepperoni?
Let's try.
Let's try.
You got ourselves pizzas.
Get out of here. And he's like, okay, pizza's on his way. Should be here soon. We didn't really believe him. So we start packing up our gear, and lo and behold, he says, Katie, your pizza's here.
17. Perfect. Thank you so much.
We got pizza. It's pizza delivered without saying a word or lifting a finger.
Return.
The first pizza
How's that?
ordered by
Oh, good.
Thinking.
It's very high tech.
He's only been working on it for 1 year, so I can't imagine what this project will look like in another year.
Is that not the coolest thing that's happened to search in the last, I don't know how long, 5 years, 10 years? Unbelievable. That video you ended it. It is designed by that MIT lab student who has been working on it for the last year. Looking at MIT's website, had I read this description a few years ago, I probably would have thought it was describing something like Jarvis or something that Iron Man would have used, but I think it actually is a little bit better. Alter Ego is a non-invasive, wearable, peripheral neural interface that allows humans to converse in natural language with machines, artificial intelligence assistants, services, and other people without any voice, without opening their mouth, and without externally observable movements, simply by articulating words internally. This slide really shouldn't be news to anyone. Search has changed. It's changed drastically. Every year it seems that something in search occurs and we are having to react to every new development. Whether it's paid or organic, we can all agree how search functions today compared to 20 years ago is fundamentally different. Every brand, every SEO, and every SEM subject matter expert here is looking for an edge, an upper hand over the competition. Anticipating what search engines are going to come out with next to determine what the future of search looks like has been a goal for everyone for years now. Who remembers 2017 when everyone and their mother said voice search was the future? Yesterday morning on my flight in, I went through my archives of past presentations where I used these stats. In 2017, Google said 20% of all mobile queries are voice and are up 35% over 2008. Some projected around the same time that 50% of all searches, agnostic of device, will be voice searches by 2020. Well, after seeing that video, are we sure the future of search is still voice? Or will the future be a bit more quiet than everyone really expected? Search turned 20 last year. Believe it or not, search engine isn't a teenager anymore. If we look at Google's current life cycle, I would say it's nearing the end of its coming-of-age story. Google has begun to settle into its own views and perspectives. The result, as with most top platforms that gained traction in the early 2000s, is a decline in interest from search for those terms. Looking at trends, we can see that Google searches are down 43%, diminishing returns for new users. Looking at trends, in February of this year, Bloomberg also wrote an article speaking to Alphabet profit margins sliding. Google parent, Alphabet Inc., reported thinner profit margins as the internet giant spent heavily to expand its cloud and YouTube businesses. Google's fourth quarter capital expenditures jumped 80% to $6.85 billion. The company's operating margin, a closely watched measure of profitability, was 21%, down from 24%. The article also points out that Google's ad business is built on the collection of intimate data about billions upon billions of people, a practice that's increasingly being scrutinized. In January, they referenced that French privacy regulators also fined Google $50 million, about $57 million in U.S., for not giving consumers enough information when it asked them to sign over access to it. Also really interesting to see is the headline for the Search Marketing Daily today, which I saw when I sat down, "Are brands exiting search?" in bold letters. Today, journeys are more nonlinear than ever before. The uncertainty for consumers about the decisions they make lead them to go to a variety of different platforms. Whether they go to Amazon, directly to a website, watch a video on YouTube, post a comment on Reddit, get targeted with display ads on a third-party editorial. The list goes on and on and on. And at the end of the day, the goal is one and the same, some form of a conversion. Are gleaning insights from it. I think we need something to change. We continue to refer to search like this, words like rankings, impressions, search volume, algorithms, all fundamental building blocks of search. They've been around forever. But as time goes on, I think it's important that we reevaluate these metrics. It's clear that over the last few years, we've gotten less and less access to data from these top platforms. That means less control for brands, less privacy for consumers, and less data for us who are trying to optimize. If we focus on keyword volume for a second, possibly the most important data set for our industry alone, we can start to see what the issue really is. Keyword volume hasn't really been very accurate. Rand Fishkin, this is from his Whiteboard Fridays, did a great job of extrapolating the issues with Google Keyword Planner. Just one area of where we get some keyword volume from. A lot of our industry folks refer to Amazon as, except it's not, if you peel it back, it's not really a garden, it's more of a maze. Amazon is a maze for this industry, for a lot of different industries, for the brands that are advertising on their platform. With the amount of data provided by Amazon, it's almost impossible to know our left from right. Unlike Google, there is no volume provided outright from Amazon, similar to a keyword planner or a trends. We have to do a lot of digging. Usually it's a pay-for-play. We have to pay for ads, and we can glean it from insights from impression data. No keyword volume, no problem. Not really. With my experience on Amazon, trying to use the tools that we currently have today, whether it's third party, our own data, it's still an incomplete view. It's difficult to guide whether you're an agency or you're the brand itself to really understand the full landscape of Amazon due to this data outage.
'20s and '30s, it was the role of government. '50s and '60s, it was civil rights. The next 2 decades are going to be privacy. I'm talking about the internet. I'm talking about cell phones. I'm talking about health records and who's gay and who's not.
For anyone who doesn't know that show, that's West Wing. Aaron Sorkin. I think with a lot of issues we're experiencing today with many of our platforms, including Facebook or some of the other platforms that are dealing with privacy currently and trying to proactively, this was a great shot in the dark in terms of what we could have expected 20 years down the line, and I think that's somewhat come true. One of Aaron Sorkin's many self-fulfilling prophecies, I guess, or just common sense. In any case, it's clear that issues that have happened with companies handling data, whether over the last 20 years, have had some impact to some degree. In 2014, 91% of Americans agreed they had lost control of their online information. Back then, 80% of social media users said they were concerned about advertisers and businesses accessing the data they share on social media platforms. And 64% said the government should do more to regulate advertisers. Coincidentally, 2014 was the same year that Cambridge Analytica happened. And with that, a thought occurred to me about 2 years ago that we can do a little bit better. And so I had a thought. I'm a big Harry Potter fan, by the way. I had a thought. What if we looked at our search data that we currently had and everything currently in the ecosystem and build a better model for measurement, starting with fundamental keyword research. We tried pretty much everything. I threw everything at it. Rankings, our own data, random numbers. No matter what we did, variation-wise, clients always had a problem understanding it. And still to this day do. When you try to explain to them algorithms and ranking, simple from a understandings perspective, if you can explain it in layman's terms. And so what we were looking for, and what I was looking for, was really a data set that could tie a lot of the channels together. And honestly, it wasn't anything new or inventive. It was just looking at this data set in a different way. And that data was Clickstream. I'm sure you've heard of a ton of clickstream providers. It ranges from Hitwise, SimilarWeb. There's a number of them out there. And currently, a lot of SEO tools today, including SEMrush and Moz, use clickstream data in some way to normalize the numbers that they have in their systems. And with great data comes great responsibility. So this data and this method we've been developing for the last few years. We're starting to use it in partnership with Performix. We're starting to optimize leveraging this data as sort of like this fundamental connective tissue, if you will, between paid and organic search to see what value can be added. And the results, I think, are going to be very interesting. With Clickstream data, we are better able to answer the question if we are winning in search or not. Winning in search. I think for the longest time, winning in search was position one, top 3 positions. Have to show up in position 1 for paid search. It always came down to positions, which, if you think about it, is a directional metric. It does not indicate if you're winning. You can have position 1 in paid search a percentage of the time, but you're not there 100%. Organic search, it's variable. You go up, you go down, you get pulled out, you get de-indexed. It's not always on. So what if we could leverage Clickstream data to instead of measuring those top positions as a directional metric, we can start looking at traffic share. So now winning in search for us, for Verizon, is capturing a larger percentage of traffic than our competitors. Because of Clickstream data, we can, in that sample set, and a number of different data sets, we can get a pretty good idea as to who is capturing more traffic than another brand within search results. And this new approach As we move forward with all of these changes that are happening, will help us future-proof our approach, whether it's Amazon, Google, different branding of Bing apparently, or Yahoo. So this next section is really about innovations, a little bit less about Clickstream or what we're doing or what I'm focused on. And we're really focusing on beyond the next year and a half, 2 years, what can search potentially look like? And going backwards has really been probably the most beneficial to see what we're going to be headed into. So for this next section, I just wanted to ask, anybody else notice that search was not a huge part of Google I/O last year? I watched the entire thing from my office desk. I did not really see a huge emphasis on search, but I did see it on these things. We got Duplex. You have your Google Assistant call on behalf of you. It schedules your appointment, schedules your reservation. We've got the Google Voice being switched out with the Google Home being switched out with the smart display. We've got AR sort of search. You can navigate around. And we've got autocomplete in emails, which has been something I've been using. But in the meantime, what other search engines are doing, and new search engines, in fact, they're starting to build their platforms on the blockchain. This is something have been keeping my finger on the pulse of for quite some time, two of which, Presearch and BitClave. I think Presearch has been making some pretty good headway within search. And one of their key tenets right now, and the way they're attracting new users, is by paying them directly. No ads right now. You use the platform, you exchange your data, and they pay you in cryptocurrency. And these are some principles of blockchain-based search engines. And as I was going through these, and these are based off of the Bleco search engine, which is what Presearch used when starting to build their white paper for their platform. And these tenets start to bring me back to the beginning days of search. What we all thought, from an SEO perspective at least, what search was and would be and continue to be. Search shall be open. It will involve people. Ranking data shall not be kept secret. Web data shall be readily available. No one size fits all. Advanced search shall be accessible. Engine tools shall be open to all. Search and community go hand in hand. Spam does not belong in search results, and the privacy of searchers shall not be violated. I think those are great 10 fundamental principles of a blockchain-based search engine with no central authority and more of the control with the users. So, what's next? And so I thought about this for a while, and I was building these slides. I went through a few different versions, knowing we've got blockchain, we've got a voice, we've got this speech to thought to search component, and I started looking at examples of brands or of industries that have looked at search in this way or have been very innovative over the last 20 years. And I found an industry that I think can start to peel away what the future of search really does look like. And it was pizza. So looking at pizza, I went back through a ton of different articles. I investigated Domino's. I looked at Papa John's. I looked at Home Alone. Seems to be the tie-in here. But if you go all the way back, starting with Home Alone, that one scene, classic scene, and he's ordering pizza, he gets it delivered, and he pays in cash. Pays in cash, guy leaves it on the doorstep. It takes probably a few minutes because the delivery driver's confused. He pays in cash. Then we jump to 2008. And Domino's releases their pizza tracker. I don't know who else in the audience buys Domino's except for me, but I think it's pretty good. That pizza tracker has evolved over time, but in 2008 is when that came out, providing real-time monitoring of your order online. In direct response, in no less than a month, actually a day or so, Papa John's deploys a GPS pizza tracker. I'm not sure if they actually had it all developed. I think it was just a shoot from the hip moment. But they developed this GPS pizza tracker, which basically allows you to see your pizza getting delivered to you. And then if we jump 2 years ahead, one of the biggest moments within blockchain history occurs and has to do with pizza. Laszlo Hanyekes, I just want to report that I successfully traded 10,000 bitcoins for pizza. Thanks, Jerkos. He paid that over the Lightning Network. Today, those 10,000 bitcoins are worth about $57 million for pizza. Next is Domino's DXP. They created this vehicle which can carry up to 80 pizzas. And then also they're investigating some self-driving DXPs. I think they're still in tests, but who knows where that's going. But obviously they're trying to maximize profit margins that way. And then in 2018 of earlier this year, we had hotspots. So now you don't need an address. Pizza can be delivered to you, GPS, or they pick a hotspot in the middle of a park. You get your pizza right to you. We've got Alter Ego, that device from that video at the beginning of the presentation, ordering pizza with just thinking. And then in 2018, we come full circle. At the end of this year, at the end of last year, Google makes a video, brings on Macaulay Culkin, and instead of ordering with cash, he pays online and answers the door with his smart display. So, is the future ordering pizza with your mind over the blockchain? Where Tesla drives up all on its own, and instead of paying the driver, pay the car with microtransactions. I think this is a more realistic future than voice search being the future of search. I think voice has a role. I think a lot of things has a role within the future of search, and it's not necessarily just search. This is thinking. This is integration with machine and microtransactions for a great user experience and convenience. I don't think this is too far away, but we'll see. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have time for questions of Rob, and let me ask throughout the summit, those of you who have questions, please stand, tell us who you are and who you're with. My first question was about clickstream analysis and looking for market share. So how does that, are there key ways in which turning the focus on that is changing the search tactics and the degree to which it's putting greater dependence on all these other performance channels to drive it? So how do you distinguish search from the rest in analyzing the clickstream?
Yeah, so I think the biggest problem right now with the current method, and we have a roundtable discussion, and if anybody wants to learn more about the process off the record, we can talk through it. But in terms of the fundamental issues with how we currently evaluate like keyword research as a phase one, we're basing it off of a data set that's not complete, right? Like we do keyword research, trusting Google volume keyword data, combined with some of our own data, but which is skewed towards keywords that we're already performing well for, not necessarily keywords we should be winning on. So I think the fundamental area where Clickstream comes into hand here is to determine what are the keywords we should be winning on, not just the keywords we already are. Whether it's our campaigns, whether it's our organic keyword targets, we have a ton of keyword data that probably needs to be refreshed pretty consistently. And I can tell you, like looking at some of the keywords that come out of Google's Keyword Planner, you level set that with Clickstream data, and it's far off, just from a normalization perspective.
All right, I got loads. The other one is, my other question has to do with thought-based and these other varieties of search, because one of the things that we've already learned and from voice search is the incredible pressure that this puts on brands and where branding takes place now in those new forms of search, because they become embedded, because people are no longer thinking or asking specifically for brands, or there's no opportunity for the brand to surface itself in that kind of search scenario. So taking a big thing perspective, what happens and where does branding take place in scenarios like these?
Yeah, it comes down to mental availability, I think. doesn't really matter about the platform. It's about serving up mental availability for your brand where you can. And so if we were to take that example of Arna searching with just thought alone, I think it's a number of different marketing tactics that play in to that initial thought, right? We're sort of, there was a great quote that another industry professional had made, that we're more honest with search engines than we are with our families. I believe that was said a few years ago. That quote, I think, is very profound. We're very honest with search engines in the sense that we're willing to, and in this case, free think with a machine. That kind of free thought is not just your thoughts alone. Your thoughts are influenced by a number of different factors, and in our case, it's a number of marketing tactics. And I always circle that back to just mental availability. So if we were to try and influence that kind of search or that kind of behavior, the way we would do that is just back to traditional marketing tactics, back to our bread and butter. And with search, it's content. Content is king. Always is, always probably will be.
And does it, the other threat? And again, I'm using voice search as sort of with suppression of branding, the fact that a default provider essentially floats to the top automatically, that it centralizes even more power in the search provider.
Right now, I think that can happen. I think in the future, if we allow for search engines to give a little bit more control over data, or be willing to share a little bit more data than they are right now, and I'm thinking back to the days of old when Google was a little bit more forthcoming and search engines were a little bit more forthcoming with data, I think we'd be in a better position. Enabling users, enabling consumers with power over their data, I think that's we're having good conversations right now as an industry.
Rob Pavlicek, thank you very much. Rob is going to be hosting a roundtable at the end of the morning, and you can go into this with him in greater depth. We're going to move towards sort of the theme of the summit, which is search within the larger marketing. Mike Martinique, who's the manager of digital acquisitions at Avis Budget, as they started emphasizing more other channels. Mike Martinique.
Oh, thank you. Beautiful venue. Looking forward to getting a chance to walk around and explore and meet all you guys. Fortunately, I didn't have much of a chance to do that yet. I spent most of the day yesterday preparing myself to watch Game of Thrones. Chances are you're going to run into some spoilers. So I highly recommend that you do that before the day progresses after we break. All right. Anyway, so yeah, like Steve said, he asked me to provide a quick preamble to the first panel of the summit, just kind of talking about some of the trends that we've been seeing at Avis Budget Group. So a little bit about me. I am the manager of digital acquisition at Avis Budget Group. I oversee paid search, performance social, and programmatic display. New users to come to the .coms for Avis Budget and Budget Truck to book direct on site, right? So, the main channel that we focus on for doing that in an efficient manner is paid search. So, my kind of journey in the industry, I've moving a little bit to the agency side before, this is my first foray into working on the brand side, and it's been, as you can imagine, a pretty big difference. I'm finally getting a chance to see, what is actually important to the brands, and that is, as many of you already know, an emphasis on very efficient, very measurable ROI. So, it stands to reason that search would be our biggest channel because of that. So. We also, at ABG, pride ourselves on having a test and learn culture. So, it's still very important for us to maintain and optimize in our has always been very important to us. So, am I doing this right? Oh, there we go. All right. So yeah. So especially now, it's been important to us because year over year, we decided to increase our performance social spend by about 100%. So yeah, so income the social channels. So in doing this, we're seeing some really good results. From a conversion click standpoint, but another benefit that we're seeing so far is a distinctive impact to our primary channel, which is search. So a little bit about how we think of search. I'm sure it's much the same for most of you guys. Generic search is kind of our offensive tactic. We want to go out there and we want to get the very new to file, incremental kind of customers in the door. Branded search is more so focusing on our defense kind of strategy, but we also see it as a good way to harvest demand. And we feel that we create a lot of demand through our other various performance channels, and so in doing so, we need to be there in branded search to kind of scoop that up when it comes in. So, it stands to reason then that as we increase our efforts in performance social, there's going to be more demand for us to harvest. And so, that has really, in increasing our spend so much, has really shown up as a need for us to, increase our efforts there and be there to, pick up the demand that we're creating. And that's all right with us because, branded search, it's highly efficient, it's highly intended, and, so it kind of makes it so this social increase is really serving dual purpose for us. All right, so just to run you through a little bit of the impact that we've observed so far. So, looking at the kind of top conversion paths in GA, since we did this upscaling in spend this year, the number 2 conversion path has social as, this is for prospecting social to specify, it is a strong introducer, then they'll get hit by a couple of display ads, eventually resolving in paid search. That being one of the top paths, hey, we got to be there to scoop that up, or maybe somebody else will, right? So another trend that we've been seeing, looking at Google Trends in particular, we've seen over the time period that we've increased our spend, we see an increase of roughly 10 index points across both Avis and budget. So another key indicator that what we're seeing is in fact true. All right, so let's see. Another thing that brings to mind, I should mention, is as we look at this, it's very important for us to try and recognize that this is having an impact on our most prolific channel, and where else should we be looking? Are there other channels or tactics or areas where we need to spend up to create more of this interest so we can continue to chase this trend? All right, so another area of difference in 2019 so far is we've really kind of changed up our strategy when it comes to cross-channel messaging, and we think that's really helping us out. So, this came in the form of, in Q1, we had a spring sale for both Avis and budget. So, typically, our offers will generally be the same across the board, depending a little bit by our different tactics, like we're able to have different discounts and things like that. But for the purposes of the spring sale, we made sure that all of our messaging, all of our aesthetics for our banners, our display assets, were all very consistent across the board. And our hypothesis was kind of that the offer is not necessarily as important as the consistency in messaging. The offer that we put out there for the spring sale was not drastically different from our kind of business as usual offers that we put out there, and yet we saw a very nice performance boost for this time period. We feel that is due to the fact that we're reassuring the customer throughout their journey that this is the deal that they've been looking for. This is the deal that they were hit in social, they saw on display, they see it reiterated again in search, and they say, yeah, okay, I'm familiar with that, and that's the deal that I want to convert on. So some of the specific impact that we saw here, we saw a very nice rise in reservations, in conversion rate, and we saw a really nice drop. This is in overall in search. We saw a nice drop in our cost of reservation dollars, which is our primary metric that we optimize against. So, yeah, all really good stuff. And it's also worth note that at the same time, we decided to kind of take a closer look at our responsive search ads, get some of those performance reports from Google to kind of really look closely at our top performing combinations and kind of apply those back in revising our display assets and our social assets to make sure that we're putting out there what resonates, because it is quite different between Avis and budget. So we got some good learnings there as well. So yeah, anyway, I'm here for the panel as well. So I'm going to get out of here and hop on the panel with everybody. Thank you very much.
Mike, thank you. Let me ask Monica and our panel to come up and join Mike. You can stay up there, Mike. Monica is the director of digital media at an old friend of ours, Chaka Marketing. She's going to lead this panel talking about search within that larger performance mix, picking up on some of the points that Mike already made, but also relating it to other brands. Please welcome Monica and our panel.
Hi, so I'm Monica Doyle from Chaka Marketing. I'm a digital media director. I have experience over 6 years in digital marketing and really the strategic development of our paid search accounts. So I'll let everyone kind of let me know a little bit more about yourselves.
All right. I'm Kevin. I'm from Chewy, Chewy.com. Senior manager, basically on the team from social, search, affiliate marketing, anything performance-based.
Yep. Again, Mike Martinique, Avis Budget Group, manager of digital acquisition, search, social, display.
I'm Casey Nielsen. I'm with Progression as a senior paid search strategist and been there for coming up on 4 years now.
Okay, great. So I think what we've been really hearing today is there's been a shift in search. Moving more towards audiences, a little bit away from keywords. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, is really that synergy between the different channels, and really as more performance channels move in and out of paid search, how is that driving that final consumer and that conversion? So I'm going to be asking the panelists to tell me a little bit more about their best practices for that media plan between the different, the consumer journey. Because, as we all know, it's not linear anymore, and even in search, there's different paths in that consumer journey. So let me know, what does that really mean to you?
Yeah, I can take it, I guess. For us, really what we try to do is just keep things as simple as possible. We don't think of things really like in a silo, like we're doing search, we're doing social. What we try to do is focus on our customer first and try to identify what different segments of that customer base we can then target. So what are the different performances that we're seeing across gender, age, parental statuses that we can use within our audiences and then push out to social, push out to search, whether it be an in-market audience or an affinity audience on the search side of things. So what we try to really focus on is just creating around 5 to 7 different segments of our customer base, identifying, like I said, those demographics and also the reason that they're purchasing from us. For Chewy, our main competitor is Amazon, so there's a lot of people purchasing from us and Amazon that are price specific, also ease because shipping is so easy with Amazon going to one-day shipping now. And we also see a lot of people looking for expert care, and that's kind of what we see as our differentiator from Amazon, that they can't provide that expert care that we do at Chewy.
And do you want to tell me a little bit more about how you're differentiating yourselves? I know you talked about the customer care, but maybe provide some examples of that.
Yeah, so an example of that, and really similar to anything you do holistically as well, is that we have a customer care center that you can call. You get someone picking up the phone within 3 seconds and giving you feedback on that purchase that you're trying to make, or even customer service-wide, giving you a refund or something to figure out the issue that you're having. So we also do feedback across Twitter, Facebook, but also certain scenarios pop up is that we try to use this as a lever for driving up lifetime value as well. What we see a lot of times is, unfortunately someone may have a death of a pet, and even though it's kind of not great to say, that's like an opportunity for us to build a new customer for life. So what we do in those situations is we'll give them a full refund on what they just purchased, tell them to donate that food to a shelter, and really try to build some trust between that customer during that hard point in their life.
And Mike and Casey, if you kind of want to go a little bit more into understanding the different audience segments.
Yeah, so from an audience segmentation standpoint, it's a bit different across Avis and Budget, which gives us some kind of unique opportunities to, speak to our audiences a little bit differently. But, the basic idea is, we want to go after in-market leisure renters. That's the primary focus across both brands. But within that, there are certain, high profitability segments and audiences that we try to go after, such as people who are looking for a longer length of rental. We want to make sure that, we're spending our money where it's worth it to spend our money. Things like people who are, more likely to purchase ancillaries, people who are, traveling with larger family units, things like that. That's kind of where our head is at and how we kind of slice things up and target people differently.
And do you see a similarity between the different audiences, between different channels? So I know you mentioned that it's the consistency of messaging. That's what you're seeing with the audiences as well?
Yeah, so, across different channels, it's we kind of talk to people and go after people a little bit heavier depending on the channel. It seems that, from our learnings, it seems that, we're able to control the lever for driving longer lengths of rental, to use that example again, particularly in programmatic, for retargeting in particular. Whereas in search, we don't see as big of a lift when we actively go after those users.
And Casey?
Yeah, just to kind of add to that. So Progression is in the credit repair industry. We currently have 3 brands. There's Lexington Law, CreditRepair.com, and Credit.com. And so with our audiences, a lot of it has to do with those that are looking to either buy a home or look for a loan, renting a house, things like that. And so with our audience targeting, we have to make sure that our messaging is aligned with what they're looking for and kind of convince them that they need credit repair. And so we currently have call centers as part of our company that people call in and talk to an agent about their credit repair. And so we have to make sure that we align ourselves with what our agents are telling them and what is in our ads. And so a lot of that takes collaboration with our messaging and connecting with our audiences and making sure that we're aligned there and making sure that someone that sees our ad isn't talking to an agent about something different. So keeping it consistent is a huge push that our company is working on. So.
Yeah, and with call centers, I think that's something that everyone can really relate to. It's having that consistent messaging because it's not just between the different channels that you have a little more control over. You have to really work with the agents and probably even monitor and listen to some of the calls to make sure that it's aligned. Was this a struggle that you really had to overcome?
It definitely was. So one thing, like you mentioned, we listen to calls on a weekly basis. So we have tons of calls that come in, and that's part of our job, actually, is listening to calls and making sure that our messaging is aligning with what people are searching for. So an example that we kind of came across is people who are looking for credit repair are wanting to talk to the credit bureaus. And so our messaging on our ads would say credit bureaus in the ad, and people would be calling in to our agents thinking that they were actually talking to the credit bureaus. And so our agents would be confused, the caller would be confused, and it was just kind of a mess. And so we had to make sure to include in our ads that you're disputing an inaccurate item on your credit to the credit bureaus. And so thankfully the character length in our ads has increased, so we can explain that a little more and make sure that people know that they're not actually talking to the credit bureaus, they're working with the company to repair their credit and get an item off their credit report.
Okay, and Mike, you even mentioned during your presentation with RSAs and really finding what combination of different headlines, description lines really works. Have you used that to then focus on having those new expanded text ads and using those different combinations, or in general, how are all of you using automation? Because I think it's, whenever it's tested, it can kind of go both ways. And, a lot of the time with automation, we don't see the success that we expect, and we really have to play around with it to make it work. So if you all can kind of explain what you've seen from that.
Yeah, so, with the responsive search ads, kind of drawing conclusions from the data that you get back from that is a little challenging because the report that you get back from Google is, I believe, just impression based. So you have to kind of take a bit of a leap, but it's something. Mm-hmm. And so, what we do is, we kind of use that as a farm system almost to take those top performers. We'll pull out one or two, replace those in our existing kind of group of RSA permutations, and then we keep testing and pulling things out and testing and pulling things out, and that's kind of the cycle that we perform right now. And across channels, we'll then start to do the same thing with our display and social ads. We'll use Facebook dynamic ads to test a few of the winners that we've seen and see which ones resonate, and it's not always the same. That's what's kind of interesting about it. The way you talk to people in the different channels obviously has to be different, but it can provide some good.
So for RSAs, even though kind of you'd think at face value it'd be CTR, but I think there was like a great article maybe a month ago where RSAs were kind of increasing your overall reach because you were showing for lower quality score searches. So with our RSAs, that's kind of what we're looking for. We're looking for that additional expansion that's possible through RSAs. And then similar to what Mike is saying, kind of using those top performers and bringing them into ETAs as well.
Casey, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, just basically the same answer, I guess, for me, as far as a lot of it's making sure we have a good variety in those responsive search ads and testing those, and hopefully I think Google is going to be coming out with more maybe metrics around that instead of just kind of an impression base, so it can actually give us more performance metrics on those RSA ads. But just making sure there's a good variety in there and making sure to mix it up and find what works for our company. So.
Yeah, I think we kind of struggle with trying to get more information out of Google and them wanting to make kind of not providing as much data and really trying to trust that algorithm, which I think naturally as, in search, that's something that is just hard for us. But Kevin, what's, really interesting, you mentioned that you have the different customer base and different focus on the different stages of the funnel between the different channels. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
So I can't get into like specifics of audiences that we have personally, but just for kind of an example, I did come up with one how it could lead into your kind of holistic strategy across channels. So say you see kind of like a younger demographic trending female, that's say 18 to like 25, that has like a higher propensity for gaming. This is all kind of readily available in Google Analytics. So from there, our strategy would be to, like I said earlier, look at in-market audiences, affinity for search, look at social on Facebook, Instagram side. Are there any specific interest groups that we could target that are relevant to that specific customer? And then is there anything kind of out of the box affiliate-wise that we could do as well? So we really use those three levers to kind of push traffic to the site, and then use those audiences once they've landed on site to then remarket to them as well.
So remarket through which channels? Do you use social for that as well?
Yeah, really across the board. Social, display are our two main levers that we use for remarketing.
And Casey, what different channels do you use? You mentioned with the call centers, but how are you using some of the other channels, even when we're looking at the different DMAs and the lift that you've seen overall in search?
Yeah, so we use a variety of channels, and this has been a big push for us too, is working with our other departments. One thing that we have been working on a lot is trying to get our brand impressions up, because you can't just have an executive come to you and tell you to increase brand impressions, right? It just doesn't work that way, and so we need to get creative that way. And one thing that we have done with our testing is work closely with our offline team, so TV and radio, and more specifically with DMAs, it was kind of just a small track impressions, and so we had two separate groups. We had a control group and a test group to measure impressions in the specific DMAs that we were running TV and radio in, and we ran that for a couple months and measured it weekly, and we actually saw great results. We saw anywhere between 10 to 25% increase in impressions within those DMAs, and it was just a small test with a few DMAs, but it was a good indicator that we should start looking to spend a little more in TV and radio to help us increase with our brand impressions. So.
And really, how do you all differentiate yourself from your competitors? Kevin, I know you mentioned with Amazon, that's definitely a big one, but even PetSmart and Petco, they have some great apps as well. Do you utilize your app?
Yeah, on the mobile app side, it would go into the remarketing budget as well, just trying to push lifetime value through the app onto AutoShip. That's where we see the high lifetime value that we're looking for. But in terms of like different you want expert care is a differentiator with Amazon. It's a little bit different on the Petco side of things, but we still think we can offer a better experience for kind of an.
And speaking of that, I know that there's also been a little bit of a change with the pet industry where people are focusing a little that have a lot of fillers. Have you seen that shift, and how have you been able to really combat that?
Yeah, we've definitely seen that. We've definitely seen that shift probably in the last 6 to 12 months. With that shift, we've kind of used user demand to influence what we want to do in terms of our product offerings as well. So I think search is kind of a great tool to utilize to say, this is trending with it, and that influences what we do on the product side of things if we're doing private label.
Great. And what about Mike? How do you differentiate yourselves from your competitors?
Yeah, so this can be a bit challenging, in the car rental industry. Most of the differentiation comes with just kind of brand image, I would think. Our fleets aren't terribly different. The service levels, you can talk about the service levels, but at the end of the day, sometimes when it comes to car rental, there's a certain perception there. So where we try to stand out, I think the most is in the kind of specific offers that we can put out there for specific locations that we're trying to increase our business in. We're able to do that a bit. There are some kind of more unique partnership offers that we're able to put out there. For example, our Amazon offer that we currently have. Those types of things kind of are the little edges that you need to kind of get in there to stand out from the pack. Along with Kevin's point, we just recently launched a more robust app for budget. Avis's app has been out there for a while, and both of the experiences on those we feel are very strong, especially compared to some other app solutions out there in the industry, and so we're pretty proud of that, and those are some of the
And I would imagine with that, it's a little bit tougher to be able to really track. How do you overcome that?
Are you talking about within the app?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's, don't know how much I can go into on that, but it's a work in progress, and we're trying to get by there. Yeah.
Right. And I guess, Casey, if you want to go a little bit more into competitors and how you're able to differentiate progression.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing that our company positions ourselves in is being a leader in credit repair. And so we offer a few different products or tiers within that credit repair compared to others where you aren't getting the help that you need. So that's where our call centers come in and want to actually talk with a human about their credit repair and discuss their credit report and understand it. And so a lot of people are actually calling instead of signing up and online. And so our sales for are 70% on the phone compared to online signups. So people actually want to call in. We're actually doing a test right now on the weekends where we take away the phone number to see if that has any impact on the weekends and if people will actually sign up online and if that will help with our servicing costs. And we left a teeny phone number at the bottom of the website that people are actually finding. And it was surprising. We thought there was going to be a big decrease in sales over the weekend, but it was just a slight decrease because people actually want to call in and talk to someone and have them consult them about what they should do going forward with their credit report.
So with that, that's obviously been a small test. Is all of your focus really just continuing to test and try different things, whether that's with the different audiences or different channels, just in general different focuses? Do you have any examples that you guys can share with that?
Yeah, so, like I said, we test a number of different, high profitability factors across all channels, but one thing that we really try that's really important to us. So without getting into the strategy too much, that's, that's been a big emphasis just to make sure that we're not going after people who would already book, based on the fact that, between Avis and Budget, there's a lot of brand recognition there. There's, we're likely to have customers come to us kind of regardless. So we're trying to do things to measure how much our paid media is actually impacting incremental new users and things like that.
So in GA, there's a lot of different audiences, a lot of capabilities where you can pull in audiences that new users versus sessions, the pages they visited, and kind of like their journey through the site. Is that something that you're using?
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah. We're always be saying this. Some of your partners might be saying this, but we kind of definitely use that as a fact checker and source of truth to keep an eye on it and make sure that that is indeed what we're observing from our results.
And Kevin, do you
observing from our results?
And Kevin, do you utilize GA?
Yeah, I would say very similar to Mike. We're always testing basically any lever you can pull in Google, Bing, any audience that you can import in, then across any other channel. We're certainly always testing, yeah.
And Casey?
Yeah, same. Yep. We also have a kind of MarTech team that we work with closely that helps us with those analysis and audiences as far as pulling those in and testing those. So.
Great. I guess another question that I have is more along the lines of, as search really plays into along with the other channels, and you want that synergy between them, and the audiences, the messaging, all of that. No way that we can really see true attribution. We have to have a little bit more trust. It's like that gut trust, knowing that what's working, and continuous testing, as we kind of mentioned. Do you have any other remarks that, on that topic that has helped you, or any challenges that you're currently
align it to your business model, and that's probably like the best route to go. At least that's what we do.
Yeah, definitely. Cross-channel attribution is a big challenge. I'm sure that's the same for a lot of people. It's tough when multi-touch attribution systems that we look at, we're continuing to look at, just trying to make sure that we're finding the right fit that's going to actually, properly assign credit. Company, maybe to people who don't understand the space quite as well, they don't kind of live and breathe it. It's important to kind of say, we're putting this much in, we're getting that much out, and if you're trying to make a case for staying active in display, it's kind of a long-winded explanation. If you're looking at last click. So yeah, it's a challenge. It's a ongoing challenge for us for sure.
Yeah, spot on with what Michael was saying. It's a challenge, I think, with trying to get people to understand the importance of attribution, right? And trying to prove your case, with the example of offline or TV and radio, prove our case that is important for our brand impressions. They're not just going to grow, out of nowhere, and so we need to do something about it, and that's where testing comes in and attribution, and it makes it difficult when you're just looking at a last touch model. And so attribution is definitely, I think, a push for a lot of people right now, and something very important that we should be looking at.
And with that, there's been, with some reallocation or just allocation in general, really depends on what drives that final conversion. And that's part of the discussion today, is that it's really hard to find that touch point to really understand how it drives towards that final conversion. Do you find challenges? I'm assuming you're all working with the different departments. So how does that work with working closely, aligning in that messaging, and really allocating your budgets? I know you cannot really go into too much detail with that, but just kind of give like a broad overall on how you really overcome that.
Yeah, I would say we kind of look at the benefits of each channel. So previous to what Mike was saying in his presentation, if you know social is going to drive potential brand awareness along with purchases or a lead, then you probably want a higher, say, CPA goal for that channel compared to another one that's lower funnel. So that's how I think we should try to break things out. And yeah, just have an understanding and kind of a trust behind it as well.
Yeah, for us, thankfully, as far as acquisition goes, it's not that much of a challenge getting alignment from the different, acquisition channels, because myself and my team oversee all of them, so that's a good thing. We're able to kind of add and subtract wherever we see fit. When we think that we're seeing certain trends, we're able to.
I think it's kind of always changing and testing, just to make sure it's kind of a steady process that we need to be patient with as we bring in attribution and multi-touch, and how we kind of measure that budget. And so we need to figure out what works and what doesn't, and work with how we allocate the budget that way.
And I'm interested, do you use any video? I know that, we've been talking about some of the other channels, but I feel like Google has really been pushing video. It's been growing, and there's a lot of data behind, how in general the YouTube, and it's not just about YouTube, but with how TV is just now, starting to use the smart TVs, and I'm sure you've seen even on search that when looking at device, you're starting to see TV in there. Is that something that you guys are really starting to utilize? Maybe something that you've always have been?
Yeah, I think it goes back to consistent messaging. So ideally you would want TV to match up to what you're doing on the video side with, say, YouTube, and then pulling kind of similar audience and other levers within YouTube that you can pull on the Google side. So utilizing,
like you said, Google has a big push for trying to, every time we talk to our contacts, they have suggestions, and I think they're very valid and very good suggestions. I just, for us, I think we don't do too much with video right now. I think there's an opportunity there, but it's, I think where we get hung up is, from an acquisition standpoint in video, knowing what to say. As car rental brands, that's where we're going to be focusing, I think. And once we get that in play, we're absolutely going to be testing, going a little bit more into video, for sure.
Yeah, because even the reason I really mentioned it is with the brand lift studies. Now we have a little bit more view on how video is able to really influence search. So, Casey, have you tested any of that yet?
Yeah. So my team has done some of that as far as testing and getting those brand lift surveys in return, and there's been some positive results so far that we've seen. And so it's been a push just in the past few months for us, and something we're currently testing, but making sure that our messaging is aligned with what we're saying on TV, so people aren't either seeing our commercials or seeing our YouTube videos and coming to Google and not sure which company they saw, and making sure that it's aligned that way. So it's been a good test for us so far, and it seems to be working well. So
great. Do you guys have any other closing remarks or anything else you wanted to touch on?
I think we're good.
Yeah, covers it for me.
We have time for questions. We have one back here.
P-Choke-T Connectivity. I had one quick comment and then maybe a question, a follow-up. One was the comment around the customer service. I know you kind of skipped over that a little bit as a differentiator, but I'm a parent of 3 children, and I travel, and you know how much I hate car seats, and trying to get those stupid car seats in and out and adjusting those belts. I had an experience as a driving where they came with their bag, nice and clean, freshly vacuumed, steam cleaned, and would make sure they adjusted those belts for me, had it all set in, and that's I'm loyal to that company strictly because of that. So, I would be careful and sensitive to, skip over that a little bit. But my question specifically was more around the prospect of social to the display ×2 to kind of picking that up. I liked your image on the harvesting and kind of search picking that up, Michael. And I was wondering, what is the timeline from that prospect and that search first touch to search picking that up, and what have you seen? I mean, is that 180 days, 90 days, 120, 30 days? How fast is that? Because we've seen similar, and I'm just trying to see by industry, what is that time that the customer journey completes? So thank you.
Yeah, so, the customer service angle, your point is well taken there. That is something that I kind of glossed over it, but absolutely, totally understand that's something that people really care about when it comes to car rental, because there can be some great experiences, there can be some nightmare experiences, as I'm sure you all know. Anybody who's rented a car can attest to that. So in terms of the diagram that I put up there, we typically see with acquisition for car rental, our path to conversion is a bit shorter than some. One of those of the travel process, it's probably closer to like 5-8 days, something like that. I'd have to double check on based on the numbers that I put up there. I kind of just grabbed what was showing up in there, but yeah, it's typically closer to that span of time.
I mean, I think telling stories of what parents have to go through with rental cars and who services them best is there's your video strategy right there.
I will bring that to the brand team. Thank you very much.
I wanted to pick up on video and particularly come back to Kevin on that, since Chewy, it would seem to me, would have a real educational component and brand growth.
Yeah, I would say right now, kind of altering our video strategy to add that component of education and really push that we're the experts. So I'd say currently, if you saw one of our commercials, it's more kind of pricing and shipping based. So we're trying to add that education component to really go after those new pet owners and provide that trust. And the way we're executing that is between YouTube and TV, and trying to allow that to drive brand awareness for us, to fuel search, like a lot of people have been saying, to fuel that branded search as well.
Mike, I wanted to follow up on your point about social and how it's sort of evolved your messaging. I'm curious, has it also evolved and changed your targeting in social? Are you going after different people, different segments, different locations, knowing that it has this kind of impact on search?
We try to, run our search program similar to the successes that we see. Our social program similar to the successes that we see in search. So we kind of try to chase that. So yes, I think there's plenty more that we can and will be doing to get more granular with how we go about that. But as of right now, we're kind of just doing what we can. We're like I said, we just kind of drastically increased our budgets to the point where it's what I would say a viable channel for us. And so there's going to be a lot more experimentation that comes from that down the line.
How about channel choice between, say, Facebook? You use the Facebook and Instagram icons. How do each of those perform differently for you?
So, based on the kind of auto optimizations that occur, we tend to see much more towards, mobile Facebook. That's where it seems to all be going right now. Like I said, when it comes down to us actually, getting a bit more hands-on as we're kind of gathering in preliminary results after this shift in strategy, that could change. But as of right now, primarily Facebook.
I have one last global question for all three of you, and it is because we're going to talk about this more tomorrow in greater depth. But since we're talking about changing in the mix and the ways at all what you're bringing in-house as opposed to what you're outsourcing, and any changes to the technology in order to accommodate this. Let's start with the in-house and outsourcing question.
Yeah, we try, at least for the most part, to keep mostly everything in-house, just because we understand our customer better than a potential vendor at the moment. So yeah, that's the in-house question right there.
So pretty much across all the channels you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, kind of the same deal for us. There are certain vendors that we either work with now or we're just starting to work with in the realm of your question that kind of provide a bit of a they're technically not in-house and they work with us pretty closely, but we're able to really go into their platform and control it ourselves. So in a sense, it's a bit of a hybrid between being in-house and outsourced.
Yeah, same. We have a lot of it is in-house, and we have a little bit of a hybrid as far as offline and radio, having agencies that we work with. One thing the past year that we've built up very strong is our MarTech team to help us with a lot of our in-house strategy and our website optimization, conversion rates, and testing our landing pages that way, and directing our messaging to those pages and doing a lot of testing with that team.
And since we raised attribution models, are all of you looking towards off-the-shelf solutions, or are you going to try to build this in-house? Attribution model.
Yeah, so in-house for us currently, working on that attribution. So.
Yeah, we've taken a stab at doing it in-house. that's still something that's a bit shelved for the time being. So we started looking around a little bit to outsource it, and that has since been a little bit shelved for the time being. So we're kind of we're open to all options, but it's looking like it's probably going to be an off-the-shelf type of thing for us.
Yeah, we're weighing kind of both options right now to see which is the best solution for us.
We're going to have a roundtable at the end of the morning extending this topic. Monica, guys, thanks very much.
Thank you.
10-minute message from one of our valued sponsors, Perform Media. Just a quick word, an editorial word about sponsorship at MediaPost, because we really do appreciate this coming from the editorial side. When our sponsors buy into MediaPost events, they know that we don't do pay-to-play, that they don't have influence on the formal editorial content. And as you'll notice, we don't have any vendors or sponsors who are even on panels. That's part of the deal at MediaPost, is that our sponsors are supporting editorial integrity.
Oh, great. Cool.
And we appreciate that. And so we ask you to take next 10 minutes and pay attention to Mark Jones, who's the SVP of Agency Development at Perform Media.
How you doing? Mark? Hey. You guys can hear me. Cool. All right, I'm actually so I run sales at Perform Media, and I've been to the event quite a few times. I see some familiar faces here. So my boss, Leo Polanowski, usually presents. He's a total character. But last minute, Alex has asked me to join and get up here, talk to you guys a little bit about Perform Media. But before I actually get started, I want to tell you a little bit about myself, because I'm new to the stage, and I want to get to know all you guys, so I thought that would be appropriate. So I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia in the 80s, where apparently white sweater vest and black turtlenecks were very popular. Also, Vanilla Ice was very popular. Also, I'm a skateboarder, still skate, over 40, still, which was pretty cool. And my favorite skateboarder, no surprise, was Tony Hawk. What kind of haircut is that? I have no idea. I'm bringing it back right now. And then finally, I've spent the last 16 years in digital, actually probably 17 years in digital. I worked at Yahoo for 11 of those 16 or 17 years. This is actually me at the sales conference. One time I was at a sales conference, and our CEO mistaked me for her peer that used to at Google, Sergey Brin. I think there's a resemblance there. So after my career at Yahoo, after the Verizon acquisition, me and some other fellow ex-Yahoos, Alex here, left the company to go on our own venture to start a company, hence Perform Media. So we started by establishing an exclusive sales relationship with a company called Media.net. Media.net is one of the second largest contextual marketplace worldwide. They're very well-known ad tech in the supply space. And just for context, their tech is used to power supply for the search partner network. And when we started to build the foundation of the company, for more background, there was 3 problems that we wanted to solve. So the first one was just around supply. I remember I worked in search for many, many years at Yahoo, almost my entire career. And when you looked at the partner network, quality of supply was always an issue. There was challenges with many large brands. So for us, that was one challenge we could actually solve, because we had the direct partnership with Media.net. And what we did is we carved out the most high-quality all the publishers from 7 to 10. And that is our core marketplace. These are some of the publishers. It's a mix of endemic sites, WebMD, AutoBytel, and some others, along with lifestyles, news and information, etc. And just to show scale, we have a ton of scale. This is kind of our top categories here, very efficient pricing. I'd say the vast majority. The second challenge we wanted to solve was just transparency and control. So we start off by actually building a buying console that's built right on top of Media.net's tech. And with that, we have device you can target separately, OS carrier, etc. And then finally, just targeting, we really honed in on our core assets of our algorithm. So we use 30 different algorithms to scrape all the content, page level, down to the keyword. We also use other contextual signals like user location, device, etc., to determine intent. And then we have 3 very unique formats that allow us to better determine intent as well. Let me just quickly go through this. This is our first one here. If you don't mind playing the video, hopefully this plays. Play video. If it doesn't work, oh, there we go. Sweet. So as the user is scrolling through, excuse the cyber hand here, we're scraping all of the content, all the way down to the keyword, again, looking at other signals like user location, device, etc. We're using these signals to determine intent. We use that to make suggestions in a native ad. The user clicks that. They are taken to a second page, which is a search results page. The user clicks there and goes to the advertiser's website. It's very important because this is a 2-click validation of user intent, so it helps us qualify the user better. This ad performs akin to search. All right. I'm going to quickly go through this. We also have native ads that use our contextual targeting. It is keyword targeting. It's all CPC buys. Great way to extend reach to users up the funnel. You guys are very familiar with us. We just need your title, description, image, and off you go. And then the last one is a combination of search and native. So this is a responsive ad where we take your title, description, logo, and keywords. Those keywords operate like sublink that we retrofit your creative within display. You can actually just set your CPA in our system, and off you go. And we can optimize across all. These are some of the partners that had great results so far. So we have an EDU client that's been with us since the beginning. They've seen great results. We started off with some very aggressive CPAs, like a $20 target. We overachieved that. They became an evergreen client. And we continue to do that, and we've scaled the partnership. Another one of our largest evergreen clients is in the mobile phone space. We've helped them launch a ton of phones. This one specifically was targeted as a new reveal. They're actually doing a teaser campaign. The objective was a form fill. The targets actually varied. I won't go through all the details, but we overachieved their CPA by 35%, actually outbeating the engines for the specific initiative. And that partnership continues to grow. Again, they were one that we've been with from the beginning. We've done some really cool, innovative, and creative stuff in our network. All right. That's pretty much all I got. I'm going to leave it at that. And if you have questions after, please come see me. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so Mark, you have a team here. You've got Alex and Tom.
Tom is here.
Tom?
There.
Right there. Okay, so Polanowski present.
You'd be happy.
Hey, Leo, if you're watching, we don't miss you, bro. We don't miss you. We can't have people lounging on the stage here.
Right, exactly.
You stayed upright. That was good.
Yes, sir.
That was good, yeah. Okay, so just very quickly before we move into the next thing, which is the coffee and networking break, also sponsored by Perform. So if you have questions, you can go and ask them about their solution here in just a second. We have the afternoon activities today, and so if you haven't signed up for that at the coffee break, please go do so. We have golf over here at the 9-hole executive golf course here on property. It's the nicest executive course you'll ever play in your life, period. It's incredible. A lot of fun, and you can play it quickly too, by the way. So that'll be at 2 o'clock today, or about 2:30 tea time, I believe, is when I will first go off. And then fishing, but just know that you're not going to be in big waves and it's not a seasick kind of thing. You go out in the flats, but you get sharks. There's all sorts of things you can catch out there. So highly recommend that. It's a lot of fun. People have caught some amazing stuff over the years. So if you're a little nervous about that, don't be. It's a ton of fun, and I highly encourage you to get signed up for that. I think we have a couple of spots left for that. And then, of course, the coup de grace, which is the cabana party at the main pool on the north end. And fun in the sun. So those are your activities for the day. Please get signed up. Make sure you tell Julie out front what you want to do. And let's go have some coffee and networking. And Perform's got sunscreen for you. They've got T-shirts for you, polos for golf. They've got mugs. They've got the kitchen sink. They got everything out there. Just stop by their table and say hi to these guys. Big round of applause for Mark for getting us going here. Thank you. We'll see you in about 20 minutes.
And
Welcome back, everyone. If you could come back in and grab your seats, we're going to round out the morning with actually a planned session, which we're going to do right now on direct-to-consumer marketing, but also a surprise edition that will come right after that, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But we move. We're very dynamic. We're very editorially driven here at MediaPost, so sometimes we actually can slip in something new at the last minute. And I also wanted to mention that we have a couple of events coming up. Those of you who are coming to us from New York, there are 2 events that we have in New York City that are really interesting and already proving exceptionally popular. On May 15th, we're going to be doing our second Marketing CPG event, all focused on the ways in which the various changes in channels, especially Amazonification, have impacted the CPG market. We'll be doing that in New York. Go to the site, go to MediaPost, and you'll find directions to that there. We also do still have some last-minute openings for some CPG marketers who are in that category. You might be interested. Take a look at the agenda and see if you have something to add. The day after that, on May 16th, we're going to be doing Marketing QSR. This will be our first foray into focusing on that segment. Something that we've been doing increasingly with our events is looking at specific verticals and the ways in which digital is impacting them in particular. QSR event, we're going to have senior media buyers from both Burger King and Dunkin' Donuts there, as well as a number of other QSRs. And they'll be talking about especially not only the digital channels, but the ways in which digital delivery has opened up the world of QSR to a much broader range of competitors. There's going to be a lot of interesting discussion there. So go online, May 15th, 16th in New York, and we'd love to have you. One of the verticals, one of the business categories that we've been focusing a lot on in the last couple of years is the direct-to-consumer market. In fact, as I program a lot of these summits, many of the legacy brands coming to our summits specifically ask to hear from the DDCs because they obviously represent a lot of phenomena in the market over the last couple of years that are really attractive and interesting. Many of them have been using performance media to build brands in ways that we've never seen before. A lot of them are built from the bottom up with digital and data in mind. They represent much more integrated structures than legacy brands even can dream of. They have a lot to offer in terms of imparting not only how they approach a lot of these same channels that you're already using, but the ways in which brand building, customer service are all folded into the mix here. And of course, many of them are competing very directly with Amazon. So we're very happy to have with us Killian O'Bear, who is a man, as is true in many direct-to-consumer companies, wears many hats at Thrive Market. He is the senior marketing manager at Thrive Market and direct mail. That's how the DDCs roll. He's going to talk to us and introduce Thrive Market, some of his overall strategy, and then I'm going to come up to drill into one of my favorite topics of late, direct-to-consumer brands. Please welcome Killian O'Bear.
Hi everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm here to present a little bit more Thrive Market and how search has helped us since 2015 into creating the conscious consumption go-to direct-to-consumer brand. Before that, I'm going to introduce myself real quickly. I've been working in digital marketing for over 10 years. A little bit of an affiliation at Trade Doubler. I started my career actually in branding at Warner Music Group, switched to digital marketing in affiliation, a little bit of influencer marketing, and then switched to R.com, who's a very search-friendly domain, the leader in prints and posters online. And then I've joined Thrive Market 2.5 years ago, and as Steve said, I've had multiple hats. Channel management is a part of my daily business, but really, and so this is something I'm going to enhance throughout the presentation, is how data and search helps not just acquisition, but helps our product team, helps our merchandising team, and helps at the end of the day our LTV and just creating our brand. A little bit about Thrive Market. We launched in 2014, but really launched in 2015. We are a membership model which offers wholesome food, home, and beauty products off retail. We have about 5,000 to 6,000 products. So it's a highly curated catalog. And we've been scaling a lot. We've had some help with some funding throughout the last 4 or 5 years. We have over 500,000 members to date. And really, it's a mission-based company. And this is important because in search, make healthy living easy and affordable for everyone. In other words, provide food, healthy food and healthy consumption in the food deserts in America. This is particularly true because if you more, and as I'll present it, Whole Foods got bought by Amazon for $14 billion. A direct-to-consumer brand, this is how we can do it. And offline resources. So really, a direct-to-consumer mission of our private label into food, home, vitamins, and pets and babies. A membership into a family in need across the country. It's helping us because about paid shopping a lot this morning, but for us it makes perfect sense. It gave us a giant reach right off the bat. It's relatively cheap, creating a brand, and we're associating ourselves with show this pricing. This is the first thing you want to remember. And initially, we were presenting our for paid search. It's not. If you're looking for gluten-free baking goods, you're most really who we are. However, search is work on search. Few years. Look at traditional performance. Create LTV through search. This is a discussion we're going to have. Working through the different signals that we're getting. Our merchandising team in having as I was saying, marketing, but we also have lead analytics following us and grow, get rid of false positive signals. I don't know. Was driving a significant amount of our volume. Extremely cheap cost per order, but it was also an extreme. It was a horrible LTV, and it would impact our brand. It would impact our NPS scores. It would. It was a really cheap, kind of discounted SKU. We, being authentic about our mission, we decided to is hard, but at the same time, it's the right thing to do, and that's what we're trying to do. Both as a direct-to-consumer brand. Yeah.
Killian, thank you. We're going to let me ask first, since you started by saying the ways in which that the direct-to-consumer brands have working to their advantage is that they were able to organize without silos from the beginning. Tell us how your team is organized first and foremost.
Social, search and shopping. So you mentioned, it's true, I had multiple organizing our growth, kind of on different funnels of the growth. We have a dedicated analytics data science and us. And then we have a dedicated product manager for growth that helps focus on where we want to achieve and having, and this is a real positive sign coming from top management, is saying, okay, we're trying to achieve this together. And as you said, no silos. Our business model is on the membership, and having this full focus from the entire team.
Just a couple of examples about how that works, or with them in places where the data really has driven some of those decisions?
Well, it's all data-driven. Everything is all data-driven. And, it sounds a little bit what I heard a little bit earlier.
But are you gleaning insights from some of these performance channels that are actually, you could point to, or really you see them make changes in product and merchandising?
Yeah. So I heard it before at Chewy an hour ago or 30 minutes ago, and it's the same thing, right? So I see it as 5 key pillars: merchandising, PMs, data science, analytics, and us. And we all work together. So when we see on GA, a search term that is having no results, we communicate with merchandising. They then work with data science. We all work together for this common growth. And in the same time, we work with data science, understanding what are the signals that will give us high LTV or high attachment to the brand, and that's another. The third one is private label, right? So we are cheaper than the market for our partners. Private label is uniquely on our end. So you can only have them there. So in between our media buying and our strategy, merchandising, looking at what can really differentiate us compared to the market, and seeing LTV coming from that is the biggest example I could actually give.
Two typical questions come out of this. First of all, how do you manage staffing? When you're organized this way, when you start thinking about new hires, where you want to hire into, but also the nature of the staffing, how are you coming at that, solving for staff? Because I imagine you're staffing up pretty quickly.
Yeah, marketing team is relatively lean. Data science, on the other hand, is hiring a lot. I don't know if I can. I'm sorry. I don't know if I can go into the specifics of the human resources.
In terms of the competitive space here, you showed some of your competitors here. Tell me a little bit about the strategy in. Is it simply dominating in search shopping, or are there other strategies that you need to use in order to manage this share of voice and market share?
Right, and something I didn't mention earlier was a little bit more part was Amazon, right? Amazon buying Whole Foods was obviously a giant shift. We saw it as a positive in a sense where it would bring so much more awareness. B, it would mean that the 800-pound gorilla was actually seeing our industry as the next big thing. And C, actually, we're very different than Amazon. Amazon is a one-stop shop where when you want to buy, a telephone wire, there's 1,500 options. You usually take the cheapest. For us, it's a highly curated catalog. When you want to buy organic flour, you want to know what you want to buy, right? You just don't buy the cheapest per se. And that's how we differentiate analogy, we knew winter was coming at some point, but in the same time, we're really differentiating ourselves because A, we're cheaper than them, and we also have values that are completely different, where we have a mission, we're carbon neutral, while if you buy 5 items at Amazon, most likely you're going to have 3 the first day, and then
right. I mean, are these values that somehow have been have been pre-established in other media or in other areas of search that make you?
Not the mission per se. It's a little bit hard to say. Amazon came relatively late on shopping, but we haven't seen a tectonic change since they came. So Amazon's one in terms of other. So there's really 3 big type of competitors. Amazon, the big guns. So Amazon, Target, Jet.com, Walmart are really trying to get into the organic space. Then you have vertical competitors, Lucky Vitamins, Vitacost. And then you have other startups, Brandless. It's a competitive space. We're not the only direct-to-consumer brand. We'd like to think that we have focused on a few parts where we're really good at. And that's the same thing for our media buying. We focus on a few parts, and we really hone on it as a team. And so, having our mission statement being non-GMO, the product sustainability is the #1 rule in the company. And if we hone on this is how we believe this is going to succeed.
One of the, for your category, especially membership services, one of the real challenges of late especially has been churn. Yeah. And I'm curious about how some of these channels, especially search and performance, what role they have in suppressing or controlling churn.
Yeah, so because it's a little bit lower funnel, churn is a concern. But because we work with data a lot and we look at what are the signals that make us align on our audience and align on where we want to go, this is where the team partnership comes in, right? We see, I was saying, one SKU was really low, really high churn. We took this decision. In search is a bit harder, but how do we control that is by honing on the messaging. And this is why having it integrated with email, having it integrated with other message, and if we do it right, we believe they will stick with us.
Well, is it worthwhile to do things like retargeting existing users?
Exactly.
So you're persistently you're reiterating the value across the web?
Business model is a small part of our operations, but revenue through other channels, mainly life cycle is significant.
Talk about your typical consumer journey. How have you mapped this out? How are people discovering you, maybe taking a first shot at using you, moving into membership, and then towards lifetime value or lifetime user? Or
right.
Longer term user, sorry.
Right. So we partner a lot with other channels such as influencer and podcast. Or search, or a combination of both. They usually start a free trial for 30 days where they place their order, stay with us, and then discover us, really. Because of our mission, this is something we hone a lot through the different outlets that we have, and really hone on the core message of who we are. And that's usually how they stay. Again, someone who's looking for a healthy lifestyle is going to absorb our message well. And this is where we really differentiate ourselves. And this is, if we look at Amazon, their mission is to bring value to their customers. We bring value differently. We don't bring value by free membership. If you're part of the club, you're a part of solving the solution as well.
Well, let's drill into this key challenge that you have, that you referenced before, is that you're often grabbing the intent of users coming after a particular product.
Right.
But then you need to talk to us a little bit about some of the tactics that you're falling on that are actually doing that.
Right. So I'll actually take another example. Think about another direct-to-consumer brand. Let's talk about Allbirds, the pair of shoes, right? Oh, well, on point. If you want to buy Allbirds shoes, you're most likely going to hear about it because it's a sustainable shoe. This is where Allbirds would probably go, right? Mm-hmm. Sustainable shoe, create it a little bit higher in the value, a little bit more of It's kind of great shoes. And this is on search. This is search and shopping. This is one of the this is something that we're looking into as well.
Since you mentioned, since you mentioned podcasting and social influencers, I'm curious, since it's a very full, what role do they play in that overall mix?
So I don't own the channel, so I can't give you the specifics. Branded search is kind of correlated a lot with their arrival. Mm-hmm. We also, if you go through the flow, you're going to capture your email first, mm-hmm. and then you're going to start your trial, and then you're going to. There's different parts of the journey that we capture. The commitment to for influencers, if they type we can analyze direct traffic or branded traffic on the days of those campaigns, and that usually
podcasting's got to be more difficult though.
Yeah, podcasting.
Do you know whether you're using programmatic audio buys, or are you using sort of direct buys into host reads?
No, it's more programmatic, but again, on the full details of those media buyings, I'm probably not the right person.
Tell us a little more about what you're able to do at the top of the funnel that is driving this key lifetime value metric.
In what sense?
Well, what are some of the tactics you're using at least at the top of the funnel, that ultimately are having an impact on a consumer's tendency to become a longer-term customer?
Right. Just like brand association, messaging around who we are, and association with a lifestyle that some people want. Right. So, if the trend, if we're looking into trends into GA and through our relationship with Google, and we realize that gluten-free is the 2019 biggest trend, mm-hmm. and this is where we want to associate ourselves, right? So we associate ourselves with the messaging. We iterate our landing pages. We on influencers or on YouTube, we partner with the people who can deliver a voice to that audience. Mm-hmm. So when I was mentioning very earlier on in the presentation, try to trigger the right audience. For search, it's a little bit different, but it all goes from there, right? Like try to look who's gonna really stick with a lifestyle that could, at the end of the day, be associated with us.
Well, I have a couple of questions to follow off that. First of all, you have to make a decision at some point as you're on this journey to increase lifetime value that your goal is not necessarily to convert immediately, right? You have other goals that you want. So tell us a little bit about how you're thinking about that. That you're grabbing somebody at the top of the funnel. Maybe they're interested in a product, but maybe you're deciding that it's not necessarily in your best interest to sell them right away, but maybe to do something else with them.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, in order in the trial, and lifetime value is highly correlated. So in the best worlds, we would do both. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge because you need to communicate who we are a lot to have them convinced, but at the same time, it needs to be working with the economics, right? We're trying to be very lean on our cost per acquisition as well. So having this multi-touch messaging can be challenging, and that's where email is doing an amazing job for us. And that's why we're trying to trigger different product wins to get as much leads as possible, because that's where they drive the entire messaging. So if you're saying
So you're using email to do a lot of that storytelling.
Exactly.
So once you grab them, that's when you
Exactly.
start telling the longer
Exactly.
story, and that's where you can do it without necessarily driving a sale.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so we have, but I don't think we're the only one doing this, but, presenting who we are a little bit more, and especially on the first part of their journey with us, that's where we really hone, because then usually you disengage a little bit. And so, that's what we're doing a lot, and that's in our higher funnel. We also try to increase this reach by having a real way to get higher session to leads into our company. So one thing we're doing is, because really media buying with us cannot be disassociated with our product wins. And I think one thing that makes us special is our curiosity. And the thing, media buying is one part. Trying to understand what is the market doing is another. And the market is not just food. When we do our research, and I do my research, I've been amazed about home buying, like what they're doing, or their lead capture. Because even if their life cycle is really, really short, they need that email capture to just then put you in that loop and just hone you with emails. That's one thing, and that's thinking really be a little bit bigger than just our industry is A, fun, and B, sustainable for long term. Because there's so much great ideas outside.
Yeah, I think that's the next stage that a lot of direct-to-consumer brands are finding now. We just did a summit a couple of months ago on direct-to-consumer brands, and one of the themes that came out is widening the scope of your harvesting, understanding that your first, a lot of these companies were built on performance marketing that tends to target on a very narrow segment, really drilling into that and getting the performance right. But then needing this next stage is stepping back and saying, wait a minute, there are a lot of other affinities out there beyond the audience we thought we had. And having to change and expand the media plan to do that. And changing some of the priorities, because it's not going to be all performance oriented. At that point, you really are going to have to do some brand building.
No, you're 100% right. I can't go too much into the specifics of the media mix, but that's exactly right. And again, we initially went really transactional and get tons of revenue, and that was it, right? Like, we were getting a lot of trials. The churn was not where we wanted it to be, and that's where we started looking into data. That's why I think the win and the reason why I'm here today is because we've realized this a little bit early on. I can't really say I was for it because when you work in search and cost per is doing the math, then you want to push, but asking the right questions is exactly what is driving our growth today. And take a little bit more of a holistic approach and think, what is creating value? The interesting thing is it's not set in stone. Shopping is not just transactional. If you want to work on it, there's plenty of ways where you can work on it as well. The fee. And same with search. Like, search is actually there's probably a higher or text is probably a higher reach than shopping. And obviously the other channels, social and YouTube are infinite amount of volume, and that's really interesting.
I want to open it up for questions. Anybody have any questions of Killian? Got one over here.
Hi, I'm Eli Goodman with JumpShot. Earlier on, you spoke about that marketing sorry, I'm hearing myself, that marketing wasn't doing hiring, but data science was. Could you maybe talk through just about the relationship that you have with data science and how that impacts what you have going on?
Sure. Yeah, so understanding our LTV is driven by models drawn by our analytics and data science. And so it's a part of the mix, right? And data science is not just for us; it's for the entire. The reason why they're hiring is because it's a 360 organized data science helps everyone. But really, yeah, we're a marketplace online, so everything that comes is triggered by data. And their model helps us understand where we want to go. It's not just model-driven, but understanding what are the cohorts that are performing, what are the signals that makes us go left and right is definitely a part of the mix. So and again, the signals they get is not just for us. I was mentioning the multiple channel. Parts, business units of the company, it goes in hand with that as well.
TV and video yet?
We're starting.
Just starting?
Yeah.
Okay. In-house or outsourcing everything? Or
in-house.
Outsourcing? Everything's in-house? Is that going to have to change? As you start moving into TV and video, is that going to have to change?
So video creation is, we have some help on the video editing and on social a little bit more. But across our team, because we're a membership company, having a third partner is a little bit hard because our business model is not just transactional, and understanding the cohort takes a lot of time. It just complexifies a little bit the mix, and that's why having it in-house makes sense, because we understand our data better because we're in the nitty-gritty. But when I was giving the example of transactional versus membership, which has a 30-day trial, understanding that cohort that comes a little bit later for a third-party partner is just really, really hard. So.
Killian Aubert, thank you very much. We're going to do a roundtable on direct-to-consumer brands at the end of the morning. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. There you go. And now, a surprise edition, a last-minute edition. One of the things that we love doing here for these events is I get to talk to everybody who's coming. I get to tease out what they're interested in, what they're passionate about, what they have to share that may be of value to you. And at the very last minute, someone who has been in this field for a long time, Crispin Sheridan from SAP, joined the summit. In fact, too late for me to add him into the agenda, but we had extra time to squeeze this in. And it happens that Crispin, who is, by the way, a member of the Digital Hall of Fame, and has been at SAP for 20 years. The last place you worked was Barclays, right? Back in the 80s. Crispin Sheridan has been working on one of the topics that came up today that often makes, as I think we saw this morning, makes everybody shrug, which is attribution. And he's going to talk about the ways in which he's been thinking about it and working at it. Please welcome a fantastic last-minute ad, Crispin Sheridan from SAP.
Great. Thank you very much, Steve. So nice to have a podium with flat surfaces. When you put your water bottle on and you look down, it's on the floor. First off, yes, thank you for inviting me to the event. And thank you for trusting me to even get up here at last minute's notice. You don't know what's coming. But I'm happy to talk about this topic of cross-channel attribution. But first I wanted to do, how much time do I have, by the way? About 20 minutes? Perfect. Little quick introduction of myself, and then a bit of an introduction on SAP, and then I'll jump into the cross-channel attribution work that we've been doing, believe it or not, since 2011, when I first started to think about this and realized that it was the way of the future. Despite the accent, I'm originally Welsh, which, if you know Britain, is a very different accent from the rest of England and Scotland and Ireland. But I also am Canadian, having spent 18 years in Toronto. You can tell Toronto people because they say Toronto, not Toronto. And just last September, I got my US citizenship. So I've got 3 passports now. So it took me 19 years to get my citizenship, but I'm very happy to have it. And a friend of mine from Washington actually came up and did the swearing-in ceremony in New York. So my life took me, my parents took me to Arabia when I was 5 years old, and I grew up on the beach. And I want to thank you for choosing this location, because yesterday I got to go jet skiing, and that is my all-time favorite thing to do in the world. I was a jet ski instructor for 3 years in Bahrain, was my college job, and anything you did as a college job, if you get to do it again, it makes you feel young again, right? Then it was Toronto for college, and my first career, yes, in Barclays private banking. And then 2 years, essentially going back to school between 96 and 98, because Barclays closed there, and they said, hey, the government will pay for a retraining program for you. And I said, I'm like, oh, geez, what am I going to choose? My roommate at college was always doing gaming on these green screen computers and chatting on messaging boards and everything, and told me, how the internet was evolving. And so I said, okay, let's try this internet thing. So went to school for 2 years and got an internet digital marketing certificate in 96 to 98. So pretty early on in terms of being able to get an education in that. Then I joined SAP, which is the German software company, in case you're wondering, not the button on your TV that turns everything into Spanish. And by the way, if I could exclude all of those visitors to our website, bounce rate would improve immensely and conversion rates would double. Please don't Google SAP for that and go to our site. But I'm sure a lot of you have some similar issues. I've worked in digital from the beginning of that time, so 21 years. Takes us back to, 1998. And SAP is a really interesting company, because when I first suggested we do a Google Ads campaign in 2002, my boss said, why would we use Google? That's for buying digital cameras and holidays or research and stuff, isn't it? And I showed the query volume for ERP software, and it was something like 25,000 queries a month. And they're like, wow, why are they searching on Google? And people just didn't really get it at the beginning. But it turned into a very successful campaign. And I remember saying, I just want $4,000 to pilot this and test it. And he said, no, you can't have $4,000. And I said, okay, 400? And he said, no, you better use 40,000, otherwise no one will listen to you when you have the results. So I spent $40,000. It was great, doubled my budget every year, got up into the multiple millions. And then people started saying, hang on, one search click produced $1 million software deal? That sounds a little suspect. So then they started taking off the high deals from my performance numbers. And actually, that's why eventually I got into the topic of cross-channel attribution, because I needed to prove that everyone was getting appropriate credit and how valuable search was, both paid search and organic search. But I have touched almost everything else in digital at SAP. I'm sort of the incubator in chief. I started off with web analytics, then into Test Lab. We set up a very formalized test lab for doing RAB and multivariate testing, using the original Adobe Test and Target. Social media, brought that into the company. Again, people were like, why social media for enterprise software? Didn't quite figure it, but yep, really important. Then most recently, cross-channel attribution. So if we jump to the, I have my own clicker, don't I? Sorry. I think that's a German train. By the way, I've always thought that the best ad for SAP would be, if you want German engineering in your car, Mercedes, Audi, why wouldn't you want it in your software? But we haven't gone there yet. By the way, one other thing that's going to be exciting about this trip is today, this afternoon, will be my second time only picking up a golf club. So I don't think I will do our brand ambassador, Ernie Els, any credit by performing well. What's a handicap? You'll see what a handicap is today. Anyway, so let's jump into the attribution journey because it's been pretty exciting for us and delivered us some very valuable insights and really allowed us to bring the rest of the organization, both marketing and sales, along with the ride for us. So the first bit, it's got to start with the customer. The customer interacts with all types of digital and offline media at all times. You can't really just focus on the silo of just search or just paid media or just anything because the customer is exposed and will seek out content through any channel or any space, online or otherwise. So you have to have a really good understanding of where your customers are, where they're gathering, but also what kinds of messages they're interested in and how you can help. So we have a mantra at SAP, which is stop selling, start helping. And that really imbues everything we do in terms of our messaging. It's not the hard sell. Enterprise software purchasing is a very complicated process. It can take 6, 10, 15, or 20 people, 2 months, 6 months, a year, more than a year, depending on the size of the project, to actually decide. Now imagine how many digital touch points there are in that. Are you going to think last click attribution from one individual is going to be the right answer for what gave value to that $1 million or $100,000 deal? Absolutely not. In fact, any model like last click or first click, or even click, like evenly distributed, you imagine the curve from first click to last click and everything that happens in between. You might heavily weight the first or heavily weight the last, change the shape of that curve as much as you want. It's never going to be exactly right for every situation. We have products and solutions that range from a $1,000 training course you can book online in 5 minutes with your credit card, right up to those large, cloud S/4HANA deals for multi-million-dollar corporations. In fact, just to give you an idea of the scale of SAP, 77% of global transactional revenue goes through an SAP system or touches an SAP system at some point. 77% of global transactional value. So we really need to understand how people are getting to the point of choosing an SAP system and how we can optimize our media mix and really get the most, as I like to say, the biggest bang for our euro, but the biggest bang for whatever currency you're working in. So multi-touch attribution. There are many analogies. One is basketball, but I don't play basketball, so I had trouble sort of explaining that one. A relay race is a little bit easier to understand. It might not be perfect in every respect, but you really want every runner in a relay race to get the appropriate credit. You might have the person who's the best sprinter at the beginning to get the early lead. Again, a very fast sprinter at the end to pull away from the pack, but in the middle you really need consistency and maintain a good track score, time score. And again, if you don't give appropriate credit to all your runners, you won't have the right model. If you miss out one of those runners and don't give them any credit, at some point someone's going to just look at data and go, runner number 3, not adding value, drop them from the team. With last click attribution, you'd say runner number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no value, drop them from the team. One guy's going, where are my runners? I'm on my own here. You really need to understand the value that every single piece contributes. So I think most people in this room would understand what attribution is. You've got multiple touches. You've got something at the beginning that puts someone on the radar at the start. You've got something at the end, that's the opening touch, the closing touch, and then the various touches in the middle, and you've got a result at the end. Sometimes you get a result. That's when there's a conversion. Conversion can be anything. It could be that software sale. It could be that training store sale. It could be just a registration in a lead gen process. You decide what it is your conversion points are. We have many. It also varies not only by product, but also by country and by persona of the target audience. Then you have to understand what is it that implementing cross-channel attribution capabilities will actually allow you to do. So it allows you, first off, to understand how your channels are working together to support your goals. Most importantly, where to spend your money. assuming you have a fixed budget, how do you allocate that budget appropriately to get the maximum value from that recipe at the end? If you're baking a cake, you're not going to say, oh, let's just do even. We'll have the same amount of sugar, flour, eggs, and everything, and hope that it works out. It probably isn't going to work out. So understanding the value each channel contributes and how sensitive it is, the propensity to increase or decrease, or where you are on the S-curve for each channel in terms of contribution, and the impact that each channel has on other channels. All those things have to be understood to actually pick that point of spend in order to get the highest performing recipe. And very important for us, and I'm sure for many of you, if there's a change in budget circumstances at any time of the year, how do you change your allocation in order to take that as an advantage? In the early years, when I was managing paid search, I managed our paid search program from when we started it in 2002 for about 12 years. And at sometimes in the year, there would definitely be a budget constriction. And being the biggest line item in the budget, sometimes paid search was often the largest cut. But especially at the end of the year, we all know that paid search and paid media in the last month or two of the year is really valuable. And certainly for a longer sales cycle company, that's contributing to your Q1 pipeline. And you really don't want to shoot yourself in the foot with that. So if your budget does go down, or even if it goes up, what's the best rejig of that recipe to get the best out of a possible challenging situation? There are multiple attribution models that we can think of. The first one, last click, definitely not. You make any decisions based on that, and they're bound to be wrong. The second one, even, again, cake. Not sure it's going to turn out so right if you have 3 pounds of baking soda and 3 pounds of flour. Rules-based, this is a little bit better. Maybe this one. Regression actually says that the things later on in the process can be more important. These, as you can imagine, vary by product. So let's say we're talking about something brand new in the market. So when SAP first really pushed the cloud business, we weren't necessarily known for cloud computing at the beginning. So an opening touch would be considered that much more valuable in a cloud sale than it might be in a standard on-premise. Our partners give training courses. Yep, they're all teaching how to work with the same piece of software. So the last touch, once you're on that shortlist, what's the last clincher that actually gets you the deal? That could be more important, and you'll back weight that attribution curve. Oops, sorry, why am I going backwards? Okay. A couple of other models. Basic lift. This looks at converters and non-converters. I remember earlier I said if you have a conversion. There are many times when, let's say, a simple e-commerce sale like the training example or an online purchase for a consumer product. You may have people going through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 touches, but they don't buy. Just because they didn't buy doesn't mean that those 5 touches didn't tell you something and that you couldn't learn something about getting more people to touch 4 if that's a dark spot on your customer journey. Absolutely, it can teach you a lot. So the best model is algorithmic attribution, taking converters and non-converters into account. And there are multiple platforms these days that can do that for you. SAP has our own attribution platform solution, part of our Marketing Cloud now. When we first thought about this in 2011, there weren't even any vendors providing this type of capability. I remember the first meeting we had about 5 or 6 agencies, including our SEO and paid search agency at the time, Acronym Media, who's here in the room, also in New York. And we had an analytics agency, we had other media agencies, we had about 5 or 6 different SAP teams, and I remember standing up in this huge boardroom with about 28 people, and I said, okay, we're here to talk about cross-channel attribution and how to optimize our investment mix in marketing. And the hand came up, and it was, what is cross-channel attribution? The second hand came up, what are we trying to solve for? And so it began. It was a challenge, and certainly trying to get executives to understand when I said this is the price tag, and they're like, how much? it was a tough sell. But because it was a tough sell, we were put under what the book, if you've read the book, A Beautiful Constraint. Anyone read that book? It's a great book. Basically, it talks about if you have some sort of a constraint, whether it's budget, resources, short time frame, how you can turn that negative into a positive. And our beautiful constraint was we were told, if you're going to do this and spend that much money, it's got. Some of this data is sort of, it says demonstrative, but it's sort of tweaked or concealed a little bit to protect some elements. Think of this as the pool of people who showed up on the radar when we first turned on attribution. At the beginning, this was a cookie pool-based model. And yes, you're going to say, what about all the people who are deleting cookies and the platforms and browser settings that can remove cookies? We found that as long as you had roughly 30% of your audience started, we had about 70% coverage. Yes, that's been dropping slowly. There are other things you can do about that. But if you have at least 30% of your data, you have enough to make some intelligent decisions. That's the main message. So think of this chart as if you look at the pool of cookies, how many cookies in that pool, for example, at the bottom right-hand side, had just one touch? So this cookie representing person X has one touch, and it's one channel, and it's display. We've got massive volume, but the conversion rate is really poor, less than 1%. Then we looked. This is without doing anything. This is just wiring up the data collection and looking at what's happening before we even did anything proactive. Second one, if they had display and they visited a microsite. Less than half the volume, but nearly twice the conversion rate. You can work your way right up to the top and see that stellar conversion rates came from display, social media touch, and we had challenges differentiating between paid social and organic social. We've pretty much solved that now, and paid search. So if a person was exposed to those three, represent the highest conversion rate for us. The challenge, of course, is that they're over here on the left, which is very low volume, and we wanted to take what was working up here, channels, and that drove a lot of our strategy as well. The next, and I think most insightful thing we learned was that if we look at frequency of exposure, and this is across social, paid social, email, everything digital at the beginning, and then you start to count up how many records were there in each cookie, how many touches were there. Anyone with 1, 2, or 3 touches, 0 conversions. It starts going up in sort of the 7 range. It reaches a peak around 12, but it diminishes around 25, and then it's pretty much 0 conversion for all the rest of for the folks that have all those multiple touches down there. And by the way, a lot of that volume, if you were to put a chart of which, the right-hand side of that chart. So the sweet spot for us was 7 to 17 touches. That told us 2 things. One, people are having to search around and find 7 pieces of content, 7 interactions with us through any channel, and up to 17 before they actually were willing to register on the site and start the lead generation process. That was a good insight, but it could and probably does mean that our content is a little confusing, and people were having to dig around and really, find what they were looking for. So we looked at those paths and we tried to take the highest volume similar paths, and the phrase we used was to Teflon coat those paths to make them far more easy to pass through. Also to shorten the sales cycle for people going through those most common paths. And once you've done the most common, you can go to the slightly less common, and over time you'll get to the bulk of your activity. The way to do that is, if someone has only seen a paid search ad and they're now seeing, a social interaction, then if they haven't seen email yet, then put an email subscription at the bottom of the social page. All sorts of things like that you can do through any channel to try to increase the number of channels that they're exposed to. and have a correct sequence in the messaging from the awareness to the consideration through to the purchase process. This chart finally shows us the difference between last click attribution versus true multi-touch attribution and how the credit differs for each channel. I don't think I have a laser. Do I have a laser? Maybe I do have a laser. I have a laser. So let's look here first at paid search. With multi-touch attribution, don't think of this as one individual, but the entire pool of individuals with all of the data summarized. Email got 75% more credited value in a multi-touch environment than a last touch environment. Display, off the chart, 660% more value, but still fairly low. Undefined, we done our website and our country websites. Other referrers, organic search here actually got a drop. And at the time I was running organic search and paid search. So this was a mix. Paid search. So this was a mix. More credibility to my claims that organic and paid search, or search in general, and our other paid media activities were contributing significantly to lead generation. That allowed me to increase my budgets and increase effectiveness of the team. Organic social surprised us right at the beginning. We knew we had a stat of people who came to our website from Facebook were 2.4 times more likely to convert to a sales lead than people who came on average to the website. So we knew social was important, organic social. We knew social was important, organic social really shone out of the park here. What we don't have here is paid social, because at the stage that I took this chart, which is the only piece I'm allowed to share publicly, it was not possible for us to split that out. So that gives you an idea of the dramatic differences in value that you would see between a single touch, whether it be first or last, and a multi-touch, more sophisticated attribution model. So the results, and I think I'm probably running out of time. Everyone's waiting for lunch, I'm sure. Let me jump to the chase. We drove about 1.1 million euros per annum on average in media efficiency. Be careful to describe this as media efficiency, not media savings, because anyone with the media budget is like, what? So you're going to take that much away from my media budget? I'm not interested. Go and sell that idea to someone else. But as a percentage, it generated 43% in media. There were savings and efficiencies. And think of it back on that chart that showed the 7 to 17 touches. When you do typical paid media frequency capping, let's say it's 25 is your cap, you'll stop at 25 paid touches, and you'll save money on the rest. We found that out of those 25, there might be 20 that were social and SEO touches, and 5 that were paid. So in that case, we would stop the paid at 5 touches. We just saved 20 touches in paid that we knew were not going to actually drive any value. That was a massive source of efficiency. And I think encapsulates the whole idea of cross-channel attribution is by looking across all of the channels, you can optimize each channel more effectively as part of the overall recipe and the model. We did drive a positive ROI, of 2.2 against our target of 1.5x in year 1. So this project was allowed to continue and became much larger after this. So that's it for our experiences with cross-channel attribution. Happy to take any questions.
Crispin, thank you very much. We have time for questions. Anybody?
The true attribution. So I think a lot of the question that many advertisers really have is the difference between generic search and brand search. And the question that I often get is, why should I have my branded ad if I'm first and organic? So just kind of curious, your perspective on that.
Wonderful, hot search sit within one organization and have one budget. It might be a small half of the audience. And other companies where paid search and organic search sit in different groups with different budgets. At the time when we kicked this off, I managed both organic search and paid search, so we could move funds in between. We had that beautiful constraint of occasionally being told to turn off paid search, so we were able to suddenly see the terrific experiment, what happened to organic search when paid search was completely turned off, and a lot of paid search was brand. And our organic search did more than compensate, particularly on the brand terms. So as long as your SEO and your brand organic result is treated like a campaign and not just set and forget, here's my page title, here's my description, but you regularly update some of those features so that it's topical, relevant, and reads like a good explanation and a call to action, and you've got a good click-through rate on your organic that you'll see in Search Console, then this model will work. But if you have paid search in a silo, the paid keywords obviously perform really well. So paid search on its own will look like it's performing really well if you include brand terms. If you take the brand terms out, you'll get quite a significant decrease in performance of paid search overall, and you may have challenges getting the budget you need. So you really need, even if they're in different groups, you should try to experiment with bringing down your paid search on the brand terms, but then look at the overall result of search, organic and paid together, and have that be the basis by which you're evaluated whether this was a good move or not. And then you want to recycle that money into the non-brand, particularly where in organic search you're not ranking. It may be for new products, it may be for something where the people who outrank you are ones you can't leapfrog, like Wikipedia or a bunch of other factors. So you need to choose your battles in organic search. We have 6 squares, can't call them quadrants, sextants, 6 sextants, where if this is what's happening in paid search and this is what's happening in organic search, in each of the 6 boxes, it's what you should do. For example, if you have great performance for a keyword in organic search and in paid search you're not bidding on it, start bidding on that keyword if it's affordable. If it's not, start looking at the derivatives and other options, but get into the paid market for that keyword. If you're starting to increase and you've seen more than a 10 or 20% increase, or you've got to a striking distance improvement in organic search, then you can start to reduce your bid on paid search. You probably always want to stay in the market to some extent, but you have to come to the correct balance, and unfortunately you have to do it at the keyword level. So we have a hybrid model, as I say, of agencies and in-house. So if you have enough fingers on keys, you can do that. And again, start with the big stuff, work your way down, and you'll, within a couple of months, get to the vast majority of your activity.
Crispin, I knew when I talked to you last night that we had to get you on stage, and thank you very much for doing this. Post, Mike Grahan will do a roundtable on Wednesday on attribution. We can only squeeze so much at the last minute, but they've agreed to do a roundtable together on that topic. So you could ask him. Of course, you can. Ask him whatever you want, whenever you want. Crispin's a great guy. Thanks, Crispin.
Thank you. Cheers.
John, before we go to roundtables, do we have any activities announcements that we need to make?
Just real quick, we have a couple of spots left on the boat. Some scared people out there, I guess. Actually, I think it was not last year, but the year before, someone brought rice, literally cooked rice, brought it on the boat with them, and they caught a fish and had sushi on the boat. I guess you can do that. If you're that bold, you can do that. So a couple of spots left on the boat for the fishing, and then golf at 2:30 up at the golf course over here where we had cocktails last night. To show up around 2:30, and then we'll all go off one after another. And then tonight, very important, tonight we've got, back in this room at 5:30, we have the one-on-one meetings. So if you're involved in that, you should know by now. At 5:30 to 6:30, north end, and drop you off at the Q Dock, which is where we will jump on the famous Tahoe Gal. I almost said Tahoe Gal. Wow. That's the Tahoe boat that we take. This is the famous Lady Chadwick, is the boat that we'll take tonight for cocktails. The Sunset Cruise will shove off at about 6:45 sharp. So be ready. That's sponsored by our friends at Taboola. It's a lot of fun. It's beautiful out there. We'll watch the sunset, and then we'll come back and have dinner outside as well. The boat will pull right up to the T-dock. We'll walk off the dock, and we'll have dinner outside on the King's Crown lawn, sponsored by our friends at Ad Marketplace. And then tonight, after dinner, we'll have an after party right there, right next to dinner at the Harborside Grill. That starts around 9 or 9:30. Michael and John and our friends over at Acronym will be there. I'm sure he'll tell us a story about his grandpa, right, Michael? Yes, we're going to hear a story about Mike. Yeah, that'll happen tonight.
Yeah, if you haven't met Mike yet, he's got stories that you need to listen to.
That's right. That's
one
right.
of the best storytellers we've ever had at Search Site.
This is true. This is true. So a big busy day after we get out of here. We've got the roundtables now. But yeah, that's all I got for you for now. And take it away. The Cabana pool party.
Oh, right.
That's where a lot of folks are going, and that's happening at 2:00 at the main pool on the north end. Just take a shuttle up there and hang out there, and that's going to start at around 2:00. Okay.
So now we're going to go to roundtables. Those of you with eyes, please tell me where these signs. Where? Right there. Right there, where I was sitting. Secrets of direct-to-consumer gurus. Tony Orelli, who's the Chief Client Officer at Chaka Marketing, will be doing that. Middle back. And Holistic Search. Rob is going to be leading that one. Right there. So grab a round table.
going to tell you a little story about how I got here today. Anyone here ever have a travel mishap? You know, the missed flight connections, the delayed flights due to weather. Well, that happened to me today, or last night actually, on my way into Florida. So almost everyone here has experienced that. It was about a 3-hour flight delay, and I had to research, and then I had to figure out what my options were. I had to rebook my flight. I had to figure out the travel vouchers for the airline and the meal and the hotel that I was staying at. Ended up in Dallas for 3 hours. 3 seems to be the magic number here. And what was the most frustrating part was that those 3 hours were probably the same amount of time that it took me to research and figure out how to rebook my flight, right? It was a terrible customer experience. So what I realized was that, completely applicable today, they essentially had a gap in their overall airline and customer experience strategy, right? So this experience led to me being frustrated. It led to a terrible customer experience and planning around the data in real time for me. They were not sending me texts. They were not sending me email notifications. So it was just a real terrible gap that they had. And this, to be honest, this probably could have been avoided altogether if they had a better strategy around this. So let's get to the point of what this has to do with marketers today. When we think about the challenges that marketers face, there's a gap that you guys are trying to figure out, that missing piece. Well, I think it's indisputable that almost every single one of you is trying to figure out how to gain real-time attribution and optimize that customer journey, right? We are all trying to do that. So looking at the facts, mobile search drives billions of calls each year, and 69% of consumers do not want to fill out a form online. They want to call you. They want their questions answered in real time. So, as of last year, BIA Kelsey actually ran some numbers, and they estimated that mobile search generates 85 billion calls, and that number is going to grow to 169 by next year. We're already halfway through the year, so just imagine that. But what's more interesting is the monetary value of those calls, not just the call volume of 85 billion calls. They're also estimating that the monetary value is going to be $1 trillion. $1 trillion is going to be influenced by people calling at some stage of the path to their purchase. I'm going to let that sink in. $1 trillion influenced by phone calls. So we all know that there are different buying journeys for different product types, right? Filling out my wardrobe is going to be very simple. I'm going to go online, I'm going to research it. Most likely you're going to see that online conversion. And if your search campaigns, so for buying your first home though, I'm going to call. I'm going to drop off of that online. And so my coworker actually wanted me to take this out because it looks so similar. But the difference is this lady on the right, or yeah, you're right, is actually calling in. She's dropping off, right? She's trying to figure out the mortgage questions she wants answered. I wanted to leave it in because something as simple as just that, dropping off and picking up the phone, is driving revenue to your business. And if your search campaigns are driving attributable revenue, and you're not optimizing to these real conversions, then you're inevitably leaving money on the table. You're leaving some of that $1 trillion sitting there. Because of inadequate campaign optimization, wasted ad spend on retargeting to current customers, and overall, in the end, you're creating a terrible customer experience. Don't be like the airline that I flew this weekend. And I'm not going to name the airline. Sorry. This is are often digital end-to-end. You're able to see where a conversion happens. But most often you're left guessing whether or not you know when I pick up the phone and actually am calling in and converting over the phone. So for the digital journey, what drives that? So basically, your high value conversions are happening over the phone, but you don't have insight into that. Why? Do you guys have access into that? Is it a black hole? You bad decisions. It's just a gut feeling that you have. You've invested a ton in your paid search tools, but their value ends as soon as someone picks up that phone. The end-to-end customer trail goes cold. So you're trying to stay ahead of a competitive marketplace, and you're missing half of that journey. You're missing all that information. What's going on between your paid search spend and phone calls. So this all may sound too good to be true, but it's not. If you guys are not familiar with call tracking, this is where we're going to get into the powerful stuff. First, your phone call comes in. Then a unique number is actually tied to the particular URL parameters that you want to capture in your business so you can understand the digital journey. Then the call is actually analyzed through AI in the platform in real time. You can set up signals to identify keywords that are said, like whether a product was mentioned, competitors were discussed, or you can even look at call outcomes. Like was it a prospect calling, or was it a sales call? Did someone complete an application? Was a quote sent out? Then these outcomes can actually get pushed in real time to all of your bid optimization tools, to the rest of your MarTech stack. It includes Bing, Google Ads, Marin, Kensho, even Facebook. So you can basically optimize for the outcomes that matter most to you and achieve closed-loop attribution. So let's see how some of today's leading brands, like Mutual of Omaha, University Hospitals, are actually achieving this and filling the missing piece of the paid search strategy. So university hospitals, their challenge is no attribution insight. And they are a very large hospital carrier. I don't know if you guys know who they are. Hospitals, institutions, medical centers, and physicians. They're made up of over 28,000 physicians, doctors, and they perform more than 10.8 million outpatient procedures each year. And they also do 142 inpatient. So, as you can tell, they most likely are going to be receiving tons of calls. They're receiving over 400,000 calls a month across all of their locations. So they're really about patient service and that customer experience that I was talking about, very important to them. And it's not, a phone call is not just a phone call to their marketing team. It really comes down to life or death situations for them. So they really wanted to optimize and create that seamless. So what did they do? Well, they basically moved away from all their manual reporting. And this was causing long delays in their optimizations since they couldn't just adjust on the fly in real time. They were also using 12 people to resource this. That was 40 hours a week, 12 people. Imagine that. It's full-time employees. With Invoca and started using AI. They started to identify their call outcomes to detect either was this a billing inquiry, was it a specific health provider that they needed to get in contact with. And what they found with Signal AI is that 29% of their phone calls were going to an answering service. So calls actually going through and getting appointments scheduled. 10%. It's very low. So university hospitals began using these call outcomes. And with that, they were able to actually have a predictive model that was created. And it turns out that they started to go through and take that in real time and optimize it so that they were able to send that caller to the right doctor at the right moment. So now they're able to set appointments for 68% of those who call in. 10% to 68%. So the results here, they figured something out that they had no previous insight to, right? They actually were able to increase their appointments by 580%. They saved 40 employee hours per week for 12 employees. And they were actually able to gain that insight, real-time insight. So instead of being able to say, hey, this paid search ad drove 10,000 clicks and X impressions, now they're able to say, we set 500 doctor appointments, and this is what happened on the phone call. And everyone should be familiar with Mutual of Omaha. For more than a century, they've been servicing everyone with insurance, financial and banking products. And phone calls are really, really important to Mutual of Omaha. They weren't previously tracking phone calls at all. Those phone calls. One, their Medicare is probably their highest converting channel, right? Because it's an older demographic. The older demographic really wants that one-on-one personal touch. They have lots of questions. So no ability to see that. So with Invoca, they started to pass all of right? But as we all know, that is a very dangerous assumption. So the team really needed a way to figure out attribution to their paid search programs, understand what was actually really driving a quality call, and then focus on driving more of those. So to solve for this challenge, they basically started tracking calls through Invoca. And they found that the calls were pretty short. A short call, that's probably not even a high-intent caller. There's no way that could be a conversion. So they basically started to analyze this data that they got from Invoca and tried to piece together what a quality caller profile would look like for them. And using that data, they started taking a look at how long the call was, different keywords that were said, and put that together to be able to categorize all of their calls and drive bids to spend and drive more of those. So what was the actual results about that? Better decisions about budget and keyword bids, right? They weren't just throwing money toward all of the calls. So if you take a look at this graph, our whole view changes once you start to add calls in there. They were putting money into that middle campaign and overspending for a really low conversion rate. Once they added that data in there, they actually were able to see that that first campaign to the left was driving a lot more conversion rates. So they were actually able to reallocate some of that media budget and saved about $100,000. So, who would like to actually add $100,000 back into your marketing budget? That'd be pretty nice, right? So if you guys are curious and learning a little bit more about Signal AI, Invoca, call tracking, talk to us about your paid search challenges. That's it.
Crystal.
So you've got the lineup: Crystal, Jacob, David, and Neil. Raise your hand, guys, if you're in the room. Yep. Okay. So, way in the back there. There's Neil. Okay. So grab these. It's always great to have these presentations because we're good at getting you all into cool, exotic places, but we don't really give you a lot of takeaways. And it's kind of nice to have the different solutions that are available out there. Whole industry. Okay. So, we were going to move into the afternoon. We've talked a lot about it, and it's time. It's happened. It's arrived. We have, again, today, tarpon fishing. If you're going to go fishing, at 2:30 is when the boats will leave. It's right over here at the Bayside Marina. So you're just going to walk out over by the tennis villas and just look for the water. There's a little marina there, and that's where the boats will leave from, and it's on this side. So it should be pretty convenient. If you're playing golf, the first tee time will be at 2:40. 240 over at the executive course. Just make your way over there a little beforehand, and we'll get you on the course there. Everyone's responsible for their own. If you need to rent clubs, you'll need to sort that out with the pro shop. And then let's see, 2 p.m. Ad Marketplace, the Cabana Pool Party. That's happening on the north end as well, and that is at the Point, the main resort pool. They'll have lots of music and fun and drinks and whatnot, so please join the crew there for that. And then again tonight, 5:30 back in this room. If you have the one-on-one meetings, we'll go for an hour. And then at 6:30, we'll have a dedicated shuttle that'll take you to the north end and drop you off at Q-Dock. And then we'll board the Lady Chadwick and go have our cocktails and watch the sunset, sponsored by Taboola. This is the one time that the sun is sponsored. It's sponsored by Taboola. And then dinner tonight, Ad Marketplace is making that possible for us on the King's Crown lawn. That'll happen right after cocktails. We'll dock, we'll walk out, we'll eat. And then the acronym after party, which will begin around 9 o'clock, also on the north end at the Harborside Grill. Wear your badges. You must have your badges on tonight for the cocktails, for the meetings, cocktails, and dinner. Otherwise, we won't know who you are. And if you want to bring a guest, you can do this. You can bring a guest tonight to cocktails and dinner. Just make arrangements with Julie. There's a small fee to do that. It just covers our costs, but you're more than welcome to bring a guest if you would like to. Did I forget anything, Mr. Fadner? Sir? Yes, if you're going tarpon fishing and you're staying 20 minutes, but that's all I got for you, I think, at this point. Thanks for a great morning. Thanks for getting us going, all you sponsors out there. Thanks for getting us, making this possible. Otherwise, we'd be at a hotel, Holiday Inn in Dubuque. And I like Holiday Inn, but not necessarily in Dubuque at this time of year. Okay, have fun. We'll see you this afternoon, and yeah, enjoy yourself. Wear some sunscreen.
And sing about your smile. Girl, if you were here, I'd make it worth the while. But I guess you never know how much I really love you so. Cause I'm just too shy to even let you know. I wanna be there with you each and every night. Instead of always having you on my mind, I wanna be there with you when the sun goes down, and be there right beside you when you turn around, to prove that I can love you for the rest of your life. Baby, all I need from you is just one night. Just one night with you. Just one night with you. Just to show how I feel for you. I would never treat you cruel. I'll be good to you. But baby, if you were here tonight, then you would see just how much one night really means to me. But baby, you would never know how much I really love you so. Cause I'm just too shy to even let you know. I wanna be there with you each and every night. Instead of always having you on my mind, I wanna be there with you when the sun goes down, and be there right beside you when you turn around, to prove that I can love you for the rest of your life. Baby, all I need from you is just one night. Just one night with you. Just one night with you. Just one night with you. One night with you. Just one night with you. Just one night with you. How you, my sweetheart, can I talk to you? 'Cause I want to tell you that you're looking kinda good. And I want to know if we can get together tonight. I see you walking down the road, and I wonder if you have a special love. And if you don't, then can I be your man? Because I've been watching you from across the way, girl. Still moving that sexy body, girl. And I must say that you were driving me crazy. Because I've been watching you from across the way, girl. Still moving that sexy body, girl. And I must say that you were driving me crazy. Girl, you know that I'm a big lover. Let my come on so I can put inside. Because I've been watching you from across the way, girl. Still moving that sexy body, girl. And I must say that you were driving me crazy. Because I've been watching you from across the way, girl. Still moving that sexy body, girl. And I must say that you were driving me crazy. Tell me what time you want to leave, so we can eat dinner and watch a movie. And after that, we'll just have to wait and see. This feeling that I'm feeling inside. Because I've been watching you from across the way, girl. Still moving that sexy body, girl. And I must say that you were driving me crazy. Because I've been watching you from across the way, girl. Still moving that sexy body, girl. And I must say that you were driving me crazy. So I can put it inside. Because I've been watching you from across the way, girl. Moving that sexy body, girl. And I must say that you were driving me crazy. Because I've been watching you from across the way, girl. Moving that sexy body, girl. And I must say that you were driving me crazy.
miss those days, yeah. Remember the songs used to make you rock away. Those were the days when love used to reign, yeah. We danced all night to the songs they played. We can come again, do it just the same, yeah. spend time at the parties. Now there's hardly any safe place left to go. Someone's bound to come and try to spoil the show. Remember the songs used to make you rock away. Those were the days when love used to reign. We danced all night to the songs they played. We can come again. Dennis Brown, hey, hey. Big U, Josie Wells, that a Roy would wake the town, yeah. And you had to hold your woman real close when Smokey starts to sing. Temptations, Marvin Gaye, Spinners all the way. Aretha Franklin, Patti LaBelle used to make me drift away. Play Stevie Play, Samuel Kenny Day. We dance all night to the songs they play. We can come again, do it just the